Welcome back to the Convo Couch, everyone. Pasta Jardula here.
And I'm Fiorella.
And Johnny Sue is still spinning on those ones and twos.
Is he?
No, he's not. Oh, my God. In fact, the Wizard of Oz is here. How you doing there, Oz?
I'm great. We just want to keep the stream up and running and pretty today. So you guys have a great show. Hi, everybody.
We will.
Thank you.
I won't call on you again. I won't embarrass you like that, but I had to embarrass myself because I got lost over there. I was looking at what was going on.
He was on autopilot.
I was on autopilot. I got caught. Listen, guys, there's only 50 people on YouTube. You know what's going on, right? Demonetization, shadow ban like no other. And by the way, shadow ban refugee is on the chat. We heard you, shadow ban refugee, on the call-in show on Slow News Day the other day. You were amazing. There was a lot of great things you talked about. You talked about the girls going missing in the reservations up there. You wish somebody would look into it. In New Mexico, what's going on with Epstein's Ranch. So hit us up at theconvocouch@gmail.com. Send us your information. I'd like to talk with you a little bit more. And you're also a union guy or knows about labor issues with union. So please reach out to us, Shadow Ban Refugee.
Let's talk about the PRO Act.
The PRO Act. Yeah, we could talk about a lot of those things.
Yeah, we were on the way back from Phoenix, actually, listening to that. And we were like, should we turn the car around and go to Epstein Ranch? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. I mean, I want to go investigate. I've been telling them, New Mexico isn't that far. Let's go investigate Epstein Ranch. But they're a little scared, understandably so.
Well, there's a lot of creepy stuff that goes on at the Epstein Ranch that I really don't want to see with my own eyes and stuff. Especially the practicing of transhumanism, which was going on over there. And, you know, before they released some indictments, when we did this story, it was one of it's either number 2 or number 3 in our videos as far as most watch. I kind of fingered Governor Richardson at the time, knowing that he was a Democratic Clinton lackey. And sure enough, a couple weeks later, he was named in the indictment for having funny business going on with friends of Jeffrey Epstein and whatnot. So there's a lot of stuff that went on there. It's kind of funny. A lot of people are allowed to talk about Epstein Island, Lolita Express, but nobody talks about what happened at Epstein Ranch. Why? That's the question. And it's really scary now, fam, that Joe Biden and the Clinton machine are back running things, because I don't think you're going to see any of these elitists being held accountable for what they did with Jeffrey Epstein, who didn't hang himself, by the way.
No, I don't think you are. But we are totally, absolutely 100% being suppressed. When we were actually, before we got that whole 1-week ban with, because of interviewing and talking about COVID, we were averaging a really good number of views, and all of a sudden, bam, now people don't get our notifications at all. There's no communication from YouTube whatsoever. We are going to try to reapply, but we really don't want to rely on YouTube. So breaking news, the Rokfin app is now on Android.
Yay!
So go ahead, if you have an Android phone, download the app and see how it's going. Johnny has an Android phone, so he's right now checking to see how it works.
Yeah.
So,
The picture looks limpio, and Trey Wright came right in the door, fam, and gave us some love. You know how Trey Wright does it. A lot of cool people, no offense. Anthony Scannell, all hanging out. And also a tip from Embold Fate. Hope you're feeling better, Pasta. I know the QAnoners at Arizona got you down. They did upset me because, once again, you got to stay focused, right? We got to stay focused on the audit, whatnot. I had a show earlier today with Sonny Borelli, Paisan, Arizona State Senate, and he was answering my questions before I even asked them. So he's on top of his game. They know what's going on. Actually, the thing that was really most, I'd say, enlightening today was, and he couldn't answer the question as far as giving up the playbook on what the work plan is and what they're doing. But it seems like they've been going around knocking from door to door to make sure that the people who are on that registration poll live there, got a ballot, all that thing. So they're being very thorough. However, fam, we're going to talk about it today when we get to that section. We'll mention the roadblocks. But the major thing is, fam talked about it. Rokfin now has an app on the Android. Get over there. If you're on the YouTubes, get on over to the Rokfin, ROKFIN.
Go on both, because we need the algorithm help on YouTube as well, because a lot of people only found out about Rokfin through YouTube, because Rokfin still doesn't have the notifications. But as soon as that comes out, will help a lot.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we'll get started because we have a long show
today.
So as you guys know, there is revolt and violence in Colombia, right? And this is, of course, directly connected to Iván Duque, who is the current president, and Ivan Duque was supported by the United States. His neoliberalism and what's described as far right policies, which basically just austerity measures, global capitalism, all of that, privatization, etc. And we're just going to go through the background here really quick. So recently, as of today, Colombia had 12 wounded in shooting targeting indigenous Minga. Minga is a sort of group of a collaborative community. Like, that's the definition of that. And indigenous Minga is just a group of people that are fighting. It's like a movement. Another word for that. 12 members of an indigenous Minga were injured, at least 4 with serious bullet wounds after being shot by armed men in plain clothing on Sunday afternoon in the city of Cali, Valle de Cauca, during the 12th day of mass mobilizations. Now, Cali is the 3rd largest city of Colombia. You have Bogota, which is the capital. Then you have Medellin, which is the 2nd largest city. And then you have Cali, which is the 3rd largest city. And that's where a lot of the just unrest has been happening. And in the evening press conference, the Cauca Regional Indigenous Council, a Cauca would be like a cadre, the CRIC, or the caucus, said that at around 2:30 p.m., a bus transporting indigenous guards went to the site where an indigenous leader was being threatened with gunfire from 3 armored trucks and SUVs guarded by police. Upon the arrival of the bus, the indigenous guards and members of the community were attacked with firearms. The events were captured in numerous cell phone videos and shared on social media. So all these videos that we're going to go through, that's what was going on. And the victims, of course, were the indigenous Minga groups. They were attacked by these paramilitary groups who were dressed in civilian clothing, but many suspect that these are actual police officers that have infiltrated by dressing up as civilians. So that's what's going on right there. Now we're going to go into a little bit of an overview so far of what's been going on. The victims, of course, like I said, were part of these Minga. They were protesting and having a national strike, mobilizations since April 28th. They were doing this against the neoliberal policies of Ivan Duque administration, which has refused to offer solutions for the deep structural problems affecting Colombia's working class and in the areas of health, education, work, and the economy in general. I have to point out, one of these main issues was the taxation burden was actually increasing on the working class and decreasing on the top, which is a very common problem we have all over the world. So an official press statement by the National Police in Cali falsely claimed that the police attended a call for which citizens were being attacked by a group of indigenous people. So they turned it around and say that the regular citizens were being attacked by indigenous people when it was the other way around. And that video and that the videos that were played showed indigenous people using firearms in residential areas, quote, inciting terrorism and, quote, looting houses and apartments of the neighborhood while injuring people with sharp objects. This is very familiar to how we see the two sides described, of course, and the way the media portrays it here, and, the looting and the inciting and all of that. So these claims, though, have been proved false by witnesses and the CRIC, who was unarmed, actually. And again, so the CRIC are the members of the indigenous group. They were unarmed. The mainstream media is saying that they were armed and they were the ones doing the attack. So they have denounced the former president, Alvaro Uribe, who was also a, neoliberal global capitalist type, because he had encouraged this extremism and the unrestrained use of lethal force by the police and military against demonstrators. Again, this is so similar to what's happening here. The far-right figure has used both the airwaves and social media to appeal for increased militarization and repression while promoting hate against social sectors participating in mobilization.
I just have a question about the macro, what's going on. So pretty much there's an uprising of people who want better working rights and stuff. And that's the reason why they take to the street. Yeah. And the repressive government that is backed by the United States, because I always talk about this all the time. Colombia is always in the top 4 of countries that receive military weapons from the United States. So therefore, it's a fugazi government. It's backed behind the United States CIA. Right. So what's going on is pretty much the people are getting out in the streets. They want this to do the citizens, and they're getting pushback from the repressive government saying, know your place, shut up, we're not giving you more money. And they're using a repressive type of measures with paramilitaries to push people back into submission.
Yeah, basically that's what's happening. And we're going to go even in more detail as to why this even started. But this is just what's happened so far, right? They're making demands, and they want a guarantee for the legitimate exercise of social protest and guarantees to the work of human rights defenders and alternative media. So they're demanding now because, and I'm going to explain it, but the taxes that Duque was trying to push out were actually thrown out because of the protests. So it's not even about the taxes anymore. Now it's about, we're being attacked. Our right to protest is being suppressed, and the mainstream media is corrupt. So that's what's happening. They want demands for the alternative media.
They want the Convo Couch.
They want the Convo Couch in Colombia. Yes. Whoever the Convo Couch in Colombia is, they want to have a right to protest because there are measures that were left by the previous president, Álvaro Uribe, that just pretty much did a whole crackdown on protesters and the protesters' rights. This is all very, very similar to what we're dealing here, except that Colombians are actually getting in the streets and protesting. Just saying. And okay, so they also want to demilitarize both rural and urban areas. They want demilitarization in the way that this is happening, right? And they hold, of course, the Colombian reps responsible for the genocide against the mobilized people. So the people that are uprising, those are the ones that are getting shot, as you'll see in these videos, etc. And they want the resignation of the Ministry of Defense, the commander of the National Army, and the police, because they're saying they're directly responsible for this. So this is crazy how everything is so similar right now. There's so much unrest all over the place.
Yeah.
And then Iván Duque, of course, responded by increasing militarization, and he wanted to have the greatest deployment of capabilities and said that security forces would be lifting the road blockades. In a video statement, Duque directly addressed the CRIC, ordering the movement to abandon the sites of the protests and saying the interior minister would be contacting them to make them understand that this is not the time to generate provocations or confrontations with society. Ooh. So he wants them to go home and stop protesting, essentially.
Know your place is what he's saying. And wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this committee released a statement on Sunday night expressing willingness to hold an exploratory meeting with the government of Iván Duque. They want to meet, and they want to demand respect and guarantees for the free exercise of mobilization, etc. What we talked about, the protests, the demilitarization, etc. And they also have other social movements that are outside of the National Strike Committee who want the protracted fight against the neoliberal austerity, which will continue to be forcefully imposed by the Duque regime. So they want the resignation of him and his cabinet. So there are other groups that want more. They don't just want the protest rights. They don't just want demilitarization. They actually want him to step down and his whole cabinet to step down. Yeah. So it's not a monolith, as always, right?
It's also, I think we have to point out the importance of neoliberalism, which is an austerity measure when it puts it right on the people and the rich stay richer. Okay. You know what I'm saying? It puts the burden of the state and lets the IMF hold contracts and whatnot over these countries. And you, the people, or we, the people in this situation, have to live with these neoliberal austerity measures. And they're no bueno. All right, because everybody should pay their fair share, and they're actually fighting for workers' rights over here more than anything. At the end of the day, that's what we all have in common. So
exactly, and we'll get into that. How the United States has used Colombia as it's basically just the DEA, like the Peruvian, a guy who was running for office, like his representative said, like it's the largest drug cartel in the world, and the United States has been exploiting Colombia in that regard. So on a national level, at least 1,876 cases of violence by security forces have been recorded. And this is by En de Paz and Temblores, including 963 arbitrary detentions of demonstrators, 278 victims of physical violence, and 12 victims of sexual violence, among other instances of brutality and human rights violations. Meanwhile, there have been more than 500 reported cases of missing persons nationally since April 28th. This is only since April 28th. That's like a little over a week. Like this is a lot.
2 weeks. It's 2 weeks.
Like, yeah, now it's almost 2 weeks, but that's like
500 reported cases.
I keep thinking we're like,
come on, fam. It's $250 a week.
Yeah, that's
give it
nothing.
take. I know guys who did 300 a week. Please.
Okay, so basically, they're talking about, they're really upset about the attacks, the paramilitary attacks that have resulted in killings of hundreds of social leaders, campesinos, peace signatories since Duque came to power. Much of the rural area violence is linked to drug trafficking, which continues to climb as Colombia tightens its partnership with the United States, both politically and militarily. The United States government considers Colombia its firmest ally in Latin America. Of
course it does.
Dedicating nearly $12 billion in, quote, aid to Colombia between 2020 and 2020. In 2020, $10 billion of which was dedicated to Plan Colombia, a program which by all measures dramatically increased drug production rather than reducing it. See, that money didn't go where it was supposed to go, is basically the point. So last year, the number of massacres skyrocketed as a consequence of the surge of paramilitarism. So again, guys, like the United States has a hand in this. The United States is funding the drug cartel. Basically, the United States has their drug cartel in there, and it's increasing drug production. Why do you think that is? Because there is a profit to be made at the expense of the global South. Yeah. So that's just like the big picture rundown of what's happening.
Yeah. So I just want to say we're going to get into these videos right now, and this is nothing new. Okay, we talked about the way Freeway Rick Ross. You know what I'm saying? How the CIA actually took drugs and put them into the streets of LA so they can make money to buy guns to send them over there. You know what I'm saying? To fight the Sandinistas at the time. They were back in the Contra. So this has always been something that's going on. But it's not just about making that money off that sweet nose candy. It's also the fact that then they get big contracts to sell weapons to the Colombians or give them aid and whatnot. So as we look through these videos, I want you to pay attention to the weapons, the military hard gear, the guns and stuff. That's our aid that we're talking about. Yeah. And it's just a cycle of death. You get drugs, you get weapons, and that's the whole game. And it's costing us the taxpayer money instead of, helping ourselves back at home. We're funding these right-wing crazy militia governments to the T so they can just perpetuate these crazy wars. And the elites and all the people in the military-industrial complex and the CIA, they're making money hand over fist.
And if you want to talk about MMT, then if it's not real money, it's the excuse of having real money. Yeah. Of like throwing all our money in that, right? Because that's what they use. They say, well, we don't have money for education. We don't have money for healthcare. How are we going to pay for it? But this is never an issue when it comes to war. So on May 9th, there, let's go ahead and see Erica Guevara's status. Did I put it here? There it is. So she said, Barrio Meléndez en Cali esta noche después de la visible militarización. So she's talking about in Cali, there was a militarization in the city and that all the world's eyes are on Colombia. Your obligation is to put an end to the repression and violence and protect all of the people of Colombia from the violence of the paramilitary, of the armed militia. So here's just the video. If we can just play some of the video.
Los estamos pidiendo apoyo, por favor, que bajen, que nos apoyen. Siendo hoy 9 de mayo a las 10:30 llegaron, están atacando, nos están jalando.
She's saying that they were attacking them. So, just like what we described, right? There's military militias. Okay, and now in the next one, we have Ivan Cepeda Castro.
Is that the right one? He's on a different one. Let me make sure.
Okay.
Check the thing real quick for you. I'm sorry. All right, yeah, you are on the right one, Ivan.
Ivan Cepeda Castro is the next one.
Yep, he's got it.
Okay.
La gente en Ciudad Jardín ya no quiere copiar de nada, quiere que todo el mundo vaya allá, aquí, ya, no copia.
So as you can see, they're dressed holding weapons.
La gente en Ciudad Jardín ya no quiere copiar de nada, quiere que todo el mundo vaya allá.
Neighborhoods, that's a residential area.
That's the aid. That's the
Ya la gente en
age.
Ciudad Jardín ya no quiere
It's in their
copiarte
hands.
nada.
Okay.
Quiere que todo el mundo
So-
vaya allá, aquí, ya. No copia.
And fam, would you imagine? I mean, I know we don't know for sure, but would you imagine with the fact that we arm Colombia to the T when it comes to the paramilitary groups and the government, that the government would tell the United States, "Don't worry, we'll shut this down quickly, fastly, and rapidly because we won't let you see like people demanding workers' rights in the streets. We'll shut that down."
Right. Like this, are you kidding me? We can't do this. Like we couldn't like have protests because I mean, I think something similar could happen, you know, like in the United States where you would have the armed militias,
Yeah, well,
depending on
citizens
whatever
armed,
side you're
right?
in. Like that's to be decided because I think some of the armed militias would actually side with the people over the government based on what I've seen out there in my coverage. Our coverage of the protests and the militias and all that stuff. Okay, so this is another one, Natalia y punto. Pilas a este hijo de videos de paramilitares. Okay, so these are just a segment of paramilitary videos where you can see the guys in the car and he has a gun and they're like literally just shooting.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. It's
Can you
insane.
imagine just being in the streets and paramilitaries working through and
Yeah.
with guns and shit and stuff?
Really saddens me because I was talking to my aunt like last time I visited. My aunt's Colombian, and we were like saying we should go to Colombia. We're not going to Colombia anytime soon. Bad.
What are they saying?
It's hard to put it in context because it doesn't. Basically, they're saying that they're being attacked. He's calling him. You understand that part?
I understood that.
It's the videos are of the paramilitaries themselves. So, you know what I mean. So there's like this civil war happening, and he mentions this is guerra civil.
Was he part of the paramilitary, that dude right there? Or was that dude fighting the paramilitaries?
He had a gun. I understood that he was a paramilitary. Yeah, that's a
Okay.
segment of videos that they posted. So this is the Consejo Regional Indígena del Cauca. This is the organization we were just talking about. And it is not us because, again, the mainstream narrative is that it's them fighting the people, but it's civilians with arms that are actually attacking them. So that's what needs to be understood here if you want to understand what's going on. They're saying here that the police have infiltrated the civilians and dressed in civilian clothing to push chaos in the government in Colombia, making people believe that there is a conflict between the society and the indigenous Cauca members. So they're saying that these are infiltrators put in there to stow division.
Yeah.
Like that's what they're saying. So you can play the video now.
Is there volume on this one or no volume?
There should be, but it's just like a woman, you know, she's like screaming.
I want you to translate.
So they're coming in.
Están aquí en la esquina, la gente.
And you can see the guy over there in the corner, he's shooting.
Which guy?
The guy in the white.
Eso, mi amor.
Yeah, he's shooting. And then you'll hear the woman screaming in the background because it's like, it's crazy. And then they're saying that these people are infiltrating the community to sow division. Now, the next one I have is Dan Cohen posted a video, right, saying today in Cali, paramilitaries protected by police opened fire on unarmed protesters from a group known as the Indigenous Guard. Several injuries, no reported deaths. Here's one of the numerous videos of the attack. Again, this is a group of the paramilitary who are now protected by the police opening fire on these protesters. The narrative in the mainstream is the opposite. So let's play the video.
La policía está disparando, la policía está disparando. La policía está disparando.
The police is shooting. The police is shooting.
La policía está disparando.
The police are shooting. That's what he's saying over and over again.
La policía dispara la minga, la policía.
The police is shooting. The police is shooting at the Minga, which is the indigenous group that's part of the movement that's uprising.
La policía dispara la minga, la policía está.
So these videos contradict the mainstream media narrative that these indigenous groups are the ones firing, and that's what they're trying to dispel by pushing these videos to try to show like how the police and the paramilitaries are working together, which is why they believe that the police are actually dressed as civilians, but they're actually police, and they're doing that.
So you're saying the police not only serve the state in the United States, but they do the same thing in the government in the government of Colombia too as well?
Yes. The police are being used by the government to infiltrate, sow division, cause chaos, and turn the people against each other.
Where
basically
could we possibly see a scene, maybe, I don't know, them stretching over here like, we saw in Bolivia, or was it Ecuador when the military turned on the police?
That was Bolivia.
It was Bolivia?
Yeah.
Could we possibly see a scene? Where's the FARC? Have we heard anything from the FARC in this thing? I know they retreated into the jungle. Are they right now out of this whole situation?
I haven't heard anything about the FARC, which is really weird. Yeah, I mean, I'll look into it more.
And let's see. Yeah.
Yeah. But the thing I wanted to focus on is why this started, right? Why did this protest start? Well, they started on April 28th. They were mainly in opposition to what I mentioned is now this shelved tax reform. It was called a tax reform that benefited the 1%, though. Colombians took to the streets to oppose the tax reform. The government argued that the reform was key to mitigating Colombia's economic crisis. Its gross domestic product, the GDP, dropped by 6.8% last year, the deepest crash in half a century. And the coronavirus pandemic, of course, has further driven up its unemployment rate. So that's why they started protesting initially. So why are people still protesting if the tax reform is now shelved? Well, even though Duque announced that he would withdraw the tax reform, the protest continued, and the umbrella group which called for last week's protest has convened a fresh nationwide strike for Wednesday, May 12th. So the next big protest is going to be May 12th, this coming Wednesday, saying that the withdrawal of the tax reform was not enough and that they also want improvements to Colombia's pension, health, and education system. Gee, that seems like a logical solution. But many of those who have been taken to the streets since the president announced his U-turn on the tax reform said that they were angry at the use of force by security forces. More than 800 people, of course, are reported to have been injured in clashes between police and demonstrators. So that's just they
poked the bear, fam.
Yeah, so now people are pissed.
Now they should go for more, and after that they should go to take the government out and get somebody else new in there if that's what they're gonna do.
Yeah, that's what they want, actually. Some of them. So again, just to reiterate, because foreign policy is always so complex and hard to understand, here are some bullet points. As of April 28th, tens of thousands of Colombians took to the streets to protest a government tax reform, demanding the right-wing government of President Iván Duque Márquez to withdraw his proposal. At least 19 people were killed, with one being a 9th grader. Hundreds have been injured and detained at the hands of police.
Oz, it's the first tweet Lily read in RT, Bryce Ray, the 4 pictures.
Yeah, it was that thread.
With the 4 tweets, the thread.
The pictures with the 4.
You're on the second tweet with the other one. There it is. All right, so the first one, as of April 28th.
2021, tens of thousands of Colombians took to the streets to protest the government tax reform, demanding that Duque's government withdraw the proposal, which they did. Then 19 people were killed, with one of them being a 9th grader. And then the tax proposal, which has now been withdrawn, was originally aimed to, and this is why they were pissed, right? The tax proposal was aimed to raise around 6.3 billion, eliminate deductions and exemptions, expand taxes on individuals and businesses, apply sales tax to more products, increase taxes on low and middle income citizens. So it wasn't just the working class too. The middle class actually joined in the protests because they were affected and were already struggling for what happened with the coronavirus. So the unions who organized the protest also said the tax reform would disproportionately impact low income and working class people who were already struggling financially in the pandemic. The government insisted that the reform was vital in mitigating Colombia's economic crisis, like we said, which was, I don't understand how raising taxes.
Well, maybe if they just
took
some money instead of weapons all the time for the United States and actually use it towards the people, they wouldn't have to have these austerity measures. And it's always the poor people, the
right. Why don't you take it from the 1% of the
rich.
Country?
Yeah.
Okay. So this tweet to that: due to continuing protests, that's an international condemnation of illegal human rights abuses against protesters by police. The government budged and withdrew the tax proposal, as we said, right? And then the next one is, but of course, like we mentioned, the protests are still going on. The government took too long to rescind the tax proposal, leaving Colombians on the streets to protest the way the government has run the country for 2.5 years. This didn't just start now. This has been an ongoing issue in Colombia. And this is a quote from Natalia Arevalo, who's 29 and is a protester in Bogota. They have pushed us to hunger, is what she said. So that's just a recap of really everything we just talked about. And the last thing I wanted to point out is this addendum by Isabella on the thread. She's Colombian. She said, not only is the tax reform, there are 3 more reforms and they only removed 1. There are 3 reforms that affect us. Apart from this, the president gave an order to kill the young people who are protesting yesterday. There was a massacre and they killed more than 30 young people. They blocked our networks to not publish anything, and that people do not realize it. Our new newscast report what is convenient for them. So again, the mainstream media in that country is lying to them. Again,
seems like a lot like what's going on over here. Like they're asking for alternative media.
They are, and so there was the tweet there. I just wanted to show on the map. It basically shows the net blocks, right? This was a net blocks report of the situation yesterday, so you guys can see the real network data showed internet.
He has that. If you go up a little bit, if you scroll through that a little bit, Oz, you'll get the net blocks one. It's under the Isabella one.
It's under the second subtweet in that.
Under the reply, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, if he can't get it.
No, he can't get it.
Okay, that's fine. So it's just basically this chart that shows the network data was disrupted in Cali, Colombia, and that the protesters were pretty much their internet was blocked, and you can see that it was done on purpose. This is nothing new. Yeah. They do this all the time. They did it during January 6th. They did it all throughout the BLM protests. This is something it always happens, right?
Yeah, no big deal, Oz. Don't worry. We don't need to get it up, buddy.
Yeah. I just wanted to point
just
that
showing
out.
that they zap the internet. Yeah. They do this all the time. It's something common that they do. We saw the jammers in January 6th. We couldn't even get in there and go, hey, man, we can't even do our jobs over here. That's why Johnny immediately shut down the live stream after about 10 minutes of bullshit, went to taping it and going on. Well, they're doing the same thing over there, so nobody can live stream the incident in real time. And they do this quite often. They do it in America. They do it in Colombia. They do it all over the place. So really quick, just hitting up some people that sent out some love today. We have some Super A people. Listen, guys, get over to Rokfin if you can. ROKFIM. Trey Wright, Embled Fate. We mentioned
Emblem Fate.
Embled Fate. We mentioned your Ray love. Then we have Billiam. Thank you so much for your love. And then Reeve Barker. It says, and thank you for the Super Ray, by the way. My $275 MRI shows a bulging disc. That $700 spent so far is about to get a lot worse. And I know what that's like. And I'm almost out of sick hours. Going to have to use vacation hours. This is going to be bad. And got a new boss starting tomorrow. Also, on a less important issue, your audio is has a little static to it. Is that true, Oz? Do we have a little static to our audio, or?
Yeah, Johnny and I are going to fix it after the show.
Okay, we'll figure that out. Sorry about the static.
All right.
We'll figure everything out. Let's get to the next section. Guys, get over to the Rokfin, Rokfin, if you can. So, fam, stuff going down in Colombia, stuff going down in Afghanistan, in Kabul. You might not know about it because the mainstream media has been completely freaking silent on this one. They want to cover the fact that and still make it look like Joe Biden is the hero for extending a deadline in Afghanistan by 5 months after we've already been there for 20 plus years without explanation why. You know what I'm saying? And then you have people like Nancy Pelosi who said, well, you have to pull them out safely. We have to protect the troops. But that's not the case. It's all a bunch of hogwash. It's all a bunch of lie. So in Afghanistan, this was last week. We didn't have a chance to cover this because we went over to Arizona. So last week, the fighting erupted in Afghanistan after U.S. pullout deadline. Okay? So in other words, we had a deadline on May 1st. We were supposed to meet that deadline. We did not. We extended it. The Taliban armed group launches assaults across Afghanistan after missed U.S. deadline to withdraw a troop. It says Afghanistan's security forces have fought back a Taliban offensive in the southern Helmand province. Officials and residents have said as the armed group launched assaults around the country after a missed United States deadline to withdraw troops. Atullah Afghan, the head of the Helmand Provincial Council, said the Taliban has launched its offensive on Monday from multiple directions. The group attacked checkpoints around the outskirts of the provincial capital, Khalkhashar Gah, taking over some of them, he said. So what's going on, fam, is the fact that we had a May 1st deadline, right? Mm-hmm. We didn't stand by our word. We didn't honor our negotiations, even though it was done by the last administration and Donald Trump. For some odd reason, Joe Biden extended it. And I don't know why he's getting praised for this when he's extending the deadline. And more stuff like this is going to happen. And you know as well as I do, they're going to manufacture consent, stay in there, if not send mercenaries. You know, we're going to outsource our military, and we're never going to leave.
Yeah. So remember when Donald Trump wanted to remove the troops from Afghanistan, and then all the neoliberals and Democrats and everybody was complaining that he was going to do it the wrong way, that we needed to do it the right way. And then progressives, a lot of them were like, we don't want Trump to do that, because they didn't want to give him credit. It was all about like, we have to be against big orange men bad. So they didn't want to give him credit. Now that Joe Biden says, well, I'm going to pull the troops out, but I'm going to extend it 6 months till 9/11. They're like, oh, see, Biden's better. He's pulling the troops out. Not understanding that all that's happening is a privatization of these mercenaries and these private troops, which is actually worse, because then they have no allegiance to actually have a protocol. Yeah. If they're private mercenaries, they have more
less accountability.
Like literally freedom to do whatever it is they want. There's no one for them to account to. They're not accountable to you and me. They're a private entity. Yeah. So that's what it's 10,000 times worse, by the way. So when these fucking neo-progressives are trying to paint this as, oh my God, Joe Biden is doing such a great job, they're cucks, because they're literally, this is 10,000 times worse for not just for Afghanistan and the Middle East, but for us, because they're not talking about this. They're pretending that Joe Biden is doing so amazing. And you don't get to hear, like when Trump did it, you don't get to hear, oh, how terrible it is and all this crap. No, you just get to hear nothing.
Yeah. And they never really give a reason why they extended it. I mean, if I had to guess, it's because they want time for the military to train the mercenaries, maybe, and get them accustomed to what's going on. Yeah. So that's what the extra 5-6 months would be for, because this whole thought process, and when the Democrats say, like, you know, Nancy Pelosi and Schumer, we need time to get them out safely, we can't put them in the harm's way. How stupid is that you really believe that pulling them out is not going to be the safest thing possible? When you get them out of there, they are out of harm's way. When you keep them there, they are in harm's way. So they use all this double talk, and they've been there for 21 years, and they all supported these wars, including Joe Biden. He was one of the first to support a surge. So let's pay attention to what's going on. Now, this is right after the deadline was breached. We have a reporter there who's doing some work from Al Jazeera. Listen to what he has to say on how the negotiations are going since Biden extended the withdrawal date 5 months. By the way, that extension was never agreed to with the Taliban or the Afghan government. They just said that shit, and they went away from the actual agreement that was in paper.
So what did you take from what we heard about, I guess, whether U.S. troops would remain a target or not? To clarify, today, May 1st, they were supposed to be all gone if Donald Trump was still the president. He's not. Joe Biden says, as you pointed out, it'll be by September the 11th. So what could happen in the interim?
Well, the Taliban have not declared an all-out war after this agreement expired on May the 1st. You've seen not just from the spokesman here in Doha, from the political office, but the Taliban spokesman in Kabul, Zabiullah Mujahid, in Afghanistan, saying that their agreement has been void now, that especially that part of the agreement is void. And I asked them point blank, do they remain committed to their side of the agreement, that they will not allow Afghan soil to be not used by elements such as Al-Qaeda against any foreign forces? And they say that they remain committed. Suhail Shaheen, after that interview, did tell us that he is going to make sure, he's going to speak to the Taliban High Command, and they are awaiting instructions on how to proceed, not just in the battlefield, but also on the diplomatic arena. So you're going to continue to hear these statements where Taliban seem to be ratcheting up the rhetoric that their side of the bargain has been kept and the Americans broke the agreement, but they have not declared that they are going to begin targeting American troops. It's worth noting, since the agreement since last year in February, the Taliban have not targeted foreign troops, but there have been clashes and an escalation of violence between the Taliban and Afghan government forces.
Osama bin Javed with more there on the current situation in Afghanistan. Thank you, Osama.
Pasta.
Yeah, play the other video, Oz, really quick. And
We're
we'll talk
just
about,
checking on you.
Yeah. Scratch the video. Don't worry about it. Get out of
This
there.
now with
here
Osama
it
bin
is.
Javed, our correspondent who's been following the negotiations in Doha. Let's pick up on the final point made there by the Taliban spokesman, Osama, the fact that they say they are committed to peace and to a peaceful resolution in Afghanistan. Do the talks reflect that? I mean, is there progress to report?
Well, those are the words that we've been hearing for the last year since the Americans signed the deal with the Taliban in February. But there's little progress on the ground. You've seen the attacks spiking. You've seen the scathing criticism coming from the Afghan government. And if statements are anything to go by, you heard the Taliban spokesman there talk about investigating the Logar attack, in which civilians were killed. And you heard from the Afghan president saying that the Taliban were responsible. So it is going to be a continuation of competing narratives in a very divided space in Afghanistan as U.S. forces prepare to leave. Their formal withdrawal has begun from May the 1st, and according to the U.S. president, will be completed by September the 11th. And this remains to be the sticking point. The Taliban saying that because they signed an agreement and committed that they will withdraw by May the 1st, and the other side saying that the Taliban has not really shown enough progress in severing ties, bringing down the level of violence, and negotiating in good faith with the Afghan government. And there's a lot of frustration doing the rounds, not just on part of the Afghan government, but other officials as well, who've been trying to tone down the Taliban's rhetoric in saying that you are a party to the conflict, and Afghanistan is not going to look like what it did 20 years ago.
So there you have it, fam, right now. I mean, everything's in chaos. You can see a lot of that, the video with troops just going in people's houses and whatnot. As soon as they passed the deadline, all of a sudden there was attacks all over the country, organized around there. We're not wanted there. We need to get the hell out. This whole extending the deadline was just a bunch of malarkey, literally, by Joe Biden. I can't believe a lot of progressives still bought into it. Well, if he does pull out the troops by September 11th, why is he doing that? Why? Why is he extending the date line that we already agreed to with the Taliban and the Afghan government? Well, here's some more bad news, because just the other day in Afghanistan, Kabul blast, and this is in Kabul, it kills at least 50 and scores injured. So in other words, Afghani security officials have not said what caused the blast near a school in the western section of the capital. Reports are conflicting to what occurred, and no group has yet claimed responsibility. So here we go. Right now, the Afghan government was blaming the Taliban. The Taliban was saying they didn't do it, and they were blaming ISIS or other groups. The country is in such chaos that there are other groups that have now popped up over there that are just as radical. Sunnis killing Shias. It's just crazy, and we have caused this chaos there.
Right, and that's the point, because we want an excuse to say, oh, this is too dangerous.
Yeah.
We got to protect the Afghani women.
Yep.
We have to interfere because of humanitarian. We have to give humanitarian aid. We got to protect. But guys, like, we're going to talk about this in the next section. If we cared about freaking humanitarian aid, what we would not condone what's happening in Israel, Palestine, or what's happening in Yemen. It's not about that. They're just trying to find an excuse, buy themselves time to actually to say, oh, this chaos we must come in and save the day. Again, we've been through this before under the Obama administration. He said that he would take the troops out of Afghanistan. I remember this, and he didn't. And they kept giving you excuses and extensions and excuses. Here we are again. People falling for it, I think, at this point is just absolutely just you again. You're all cucks. Like, I can't anymore. Like, this is ridiculous. How many times are they going to fool you? Even George Bush said it himself, right, fam?
Yeah, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, you can't fool me again. And we also talked about the fact that they will talk about women, right? They will say women are going to be the issue right now. Shias getting killed in Afghanistan will be a problem, but yet we can starve the Shias in Iran with sanctions and kill them. That's okay right there. And then fund Sunni extremists in Saudi Arabia, but that's okay. It's a bunch of shit. We need to get out. We need to stop meddling in these people's business. I don't want to hear anything. Oh, they've been fighting each other for years. Let them sort it out without us there, without us arming everybody to the friggin' T. There won't be so many deaths. But here it is again. We heard now the Taliban hasn't taken credit or responsibility for this last attack. So who did it? Did the new radical groups over there? Did the CIA do it to manufacture consent? Here it is. An explosion outside a girls' school in the Dasht-e-Baraki neighborhood of western Kabul on Saturday killed more than 50 people. By the way, the death toll is up to like 60 people now. All of them civilians, with most of them being young girls between the ages of 11 and 15. The blast left more than 100 people injured. Afghani Interior Ministry spokesperson Tariq Aran said that the massive blast occurred around 4:30 p.m. local time when the girls were leaving school. At least 30 people were initially reported dead, but the number of casualties rose to 50 on Sunday, the ministry said. Afghani security officials would not comment on the cause of the blast, and eyewitness accounts have been so far conflicting, with some suggesting a series of rockets, attacks, and other car bombs. So right now, we don't know who's behind the deadly attack. And that's the next part. Who's behind the deadly attack? No one claimed responsibility for the explosion, but the Afghan government has pointed at the Taliban. The Taliban are behind this attack. They carried out similar attacks on education institutions in the past, Iranian said. The insurgents have denied involvement and condemned the attack. Taliban spokesperson Zambala Mahajadid told reporters that the Islamic State, IS, could be responsible for such a heinous crime. He also accused the Afghan intelligence service of complicity with IS, though they offered no evidence to support the claim. So there you go. Again, there are claims that the government is funding ISIS in sorts, or the Islamic State, to fight the Taliban, you know what I'm saying, and fight each other. So they're using mercenaries as well. Right. But this is all funded through United States intervention, our weapons, our money. We need to get the hell out. Afghan President Afghan Ghorani issued a statement condemning the attack. In it, he blamed the Taliban, though he too failed to offer proof to back his claim, saying only the savage group, the Taliban, does not have the power to confront security forces on the battlefield, and instead targets with brutality and barbarianism public facilities and the girls' school. The jihadist group Islamic State maintains an active presence in Afghan and has previously attacked minority Shiite areas in western Kabul, specifically targeting women and children. Last year, ICE claimed to be behind 2 brutal attacks on education facilities that killed 50 people, most of them students. So there you go, fam. It's chaos, right? And we don't know what's what. All we know is that it's another Syrian situation where the Pentagon and the CIA were funding different fashions of what's going on. Right. Everybody's killing each other. The military-industrial complex is making money hand over fist because they're supplying all the weapons and guns. They don't care who wins the war. They don't care who loses the war. They only care that there is a war, because then they get funded to the T no matter what. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, everything has been a mess since our intervention in the Middle East. I mean, literally every country we have touched has completely just gone from actually being countries that were like, if you ever go through the pictures of what Syria used to look like before, and if you go through just any of these countries, Iran, Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan,
what they looked like before U.S. interventionism versus to what they look like now, that will break you down. Like, it will make you cry. I mean, when people think of the Middle East, they think of bombs. They think of just ragged buildings and destruction. Like, obviously, that's not all there is, but a lot of that exists because of U.S. interventionism, of course, and our partner and ally, Israel, as well.
Yeah. I mean,
in Saudi Arabia.
That's what they're going to do. They're going to use all this information, try to manufacture consent, saying we have to stay there because the Shia girls are getting killed left and right.
Right.
The Sunni extremists are killing them.
I wouldn't be surprised if this was a U.S. CIA. Manufactured
to stay there and do things and stuff like that. We're past the deadline, and as soon as that deadline passed, there was attacks all over the place because we are still there. We agreed to leave. Now we're not leaving, and we've been there for 20-something odd years. I don't know how you're protecting the troops or protecting the civilians. Let's show a picture of Nancy Pelosi to see these bloody shoes. This should say it all. And you could try to put it on any extremist group you want, blame this person, that person, Sunni, Shia. It's us. We're there. Our presence is what's causing chaos in Afghanistan. We've been there for 21 friggin' years. And who always suffers at the end of the day, whether it be at home, whether it be abroad? It's the poor, right? Okay, so we have another tweet here. Most of the girls killed in Kabul attack on Sunday were desperately poor. One was the first literate person in her family. Others worked as carpet weavers to pay for school. So it's always the poor, whether it be at home or abroad, that are always suffering from the boot of imperialism. We need to get the hell out of here. And for anybody out there who's saying, oh, this is really good that Joe Biden's actually doing this, bullshit. It's a bunch of malarkey. He extended the date for no reason with no explanation. You all bought it. You swallowed it. Okay, and let's not forget this. Before anybody wanted to surge in Afghanistan, it was Joe Biden. Here he is. Got it, Oz?
That's the source of my anger about this president and his policies. If we surge troops anywhere, it should be in Afghanistan. And the reason for that is, and I'm telling you more than I know you know this, but there's no easy way to deal with these incredibly complicated and consequential issues. When I was in Afghanistan last, sitting with a British general, I said, General, how long do you think your parliament's going to allow you to stay? He said, Senator, we have a expression in my country. As long as the big dog's in the pen, the small dogs will stay. But once the big dog's gone, the small dogs won't stay. It totally depends on you, Senator, and your commitment of your country here. Well, guess what? NATO has taken on the responsibilities it should for Afghanistan. But as we have denuded the forces in Afghanistan for purposes of engaging in a civil war in Iraq, what has happened? You've had the Germans and you've had others in NATO now constraining the role of their soldiers in that area so they cannot be aggressive. They cannot be proactive. So there's a direct relationship. We can have a 4-to-1 multiplier to the troops. If we make it clear to the Europe that we've made the commitment to Afghanistan and to rebuild it, which is incredibly cheaper than what's going on here, they will participate. But if we don't, they're saying, whoa, wait a minute, man. You're telling me this is not that important, and you're asking me to send more troops? It's a direct correlation.
So there it is, warmongering Joe years ago, right there. I mean, the same language all the time for this guy. How the hell did this guy get elected? I mean, I don't believe that shit. There's no way. This guy was a warmonger, and he's out there trying to act like I was always against what's going on in Afghanistan. No, you were the first. And look at the language.
Realize all
our allies are involved, fam. We got to get involved. We have to do this.
We need an anti-war movement now. I mean, with what's happening in Afghanistan, with what's happening in Colombia, with what's happening in Palestine, Israel relations. Why don't we have an anti-war movement right now sitting out there protesting? Why don't we have a March for Palestinians? Why is Yemen able to get their people out there? Maybe because they're directly affected by U.S. imperialism, right? Yep. Guess what? You are too. You just don't realize it.
You don't realize it, and you have been distracted, and you have been consumed. And I get it, but you got to get your head around and look at this stuff right now. You know, I mean, I said this before, Pam, and maybe I'm wrong for saying this because maybe we can do both, but I think that they're too many people on the left that are more interested or more upset by Dave Rubin's rhetoric than they are
by anyone's rhetoric.
Yeah.
Rose McGowan,
anybody's rhetoric.
More no, we're
Blinken's
policing.
actions.
We're policing now people's rhetoric. We're too busy starting fucking culture wars on people's fucking rhetoric instead of caring about people getting bombs. Come on. Like, let's cut the crap. Like, anytime these people distract you with, oh, she said something and now she's anti this and anti that, you don't get to decide someone is anti this or that by a tweet they made or something. But like, criticism of a politician is what it came down to. And it's like, these are the things that are distracting us from actually mobilizing for the things that matter. Because again, we live in a war economy where you don't even see the profit of it. Not that it's still acceptable, but you don't even get to see the profit
there are
off of it.
jobs created, fam. There are jobs.
There should be jobs of maintaining peace.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to constantly involve ourselves.
Absolutely.
Right?
We shouldn't be engineering war. We should be engineering peace. And so that's that. Emble Fate. How come you guys don't stream on Odyssey too, like Hard Lens Media does? We'll look into that. David Guevara, thank you so much. Where's Hunter Biden? Is he fighting for Afghan freedom in Afghanistan? No, but he's probably fighting for his daddy's actions all the times and just excuses them, and he'll probably blame Russia. Thomas Dickinson, thank you so much for the super raid. We really do appreciate it. 46 people watching on Rokfin. We want to get that number up. We almost got 200 people watching on the YouTubes. We have over 200 people watching on the YouTubes. Gamer for Life is there, of course. Monarch, all our friends. CJ, get on over to Rokfin, Rokfin. They have an Android app too as well, so you can check that out as well. Fam, we can't have a show without talking about your friend Bibi Netanyahu, can we?
No, I mean, this is beyond Netanyahu. This is literally the culture in Israel. When we did a show maybe over a year ago, when we talked about the people in Israel, the vast majority of them and the vast majority of officials running, they're all like anti-Palestinian. It's like a unified thing in Israel, right? And so what's been happening is that Israel has been attacking everyone. They've been attacking, bombing Syria, but specifically, meanwhile, they have been, of course, going after Palestinians. And the attacks on Palestinians that hit an alarming, just like tipping point. They attacked them at the Damascus Gate, right? Israel attacked the Palestinians at Damascus Gate.
Oz, can you show the title of that, please?
It's just like at the top
part. Yeah, the top part. There it is.
Yep. And so Israeli forces used stun grenades to disperse the Palestinians gathered at Damascus Gate in occupied East Jerusalem's Old City. Of course, this is the brunt, right? The area where there's a brunt of the fight between Palestinians and Israelis. Israeli police on Saturday used stun grenades to disperse Palestinians that were gathered there in East Jerusalem. A large number of Palestinians gathered after performing the Tarwas prayer in Al-Aqsa Mosque. So there's a video. We don't have to play it because we're going to play a bunch of videos. But they have protested, of course, and in solidarity with the residents of Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood amidst clashes with Israeli police because these people are being removed from their homes. And at least 205 people were injured in the Israeli attacks on this mosque, and we're going to go over that in a second. And the Damascus Gate of the Old City and the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood on Friday. This is according to the Palestinian Red Crescent. So that's what's happening, guys. It's been really bad. And today, and what I mean by today is our time, midnight, right? Because the time difference. There was this. Parisi Zainab said, the world always turns a blind eye when Muslims are the ones facing oppression. May Allah help those in need in Palestine and ease their difficulties. This is beyond terrifying how easily someone can take away a basic human right. And they tagged the UN and they said, save Sheikh Jarrah.
What's the first sentence say again, fam?
The world always turns a blind eye when Muslims are the ones facing oppression.
And that's the thing. We talk about this all the time. We talk about, okay, listen, we understand that we have a lot of social issues to fix here, but we have to fix issues over there as well. We cannot turn a blind eye.
Yeah, I just want to go back to that picture, Oz. I wanted to mention the We Can't Breathe Since 1948 sign, because this is an important distinction that happens. See, in America, we focus on domestic issues only. We, unlike everybody else around the world, don't know. The vast majority of Americans can't point Palestine on a map. Can't don't really know what's going on. And I'm not trying to insult that. I'm saying that is by design. That is by design. They don't want you to care about everybody else and who gets bombed. I'm not saying it's not important to look at police brutality, right? But you have to understand that we're a violent country and we're going to be violently domestically to our citizens. If we do that to our citizens, imagine what we do to the rest of the world. And this is something that never gets talked about. Yeah. We never talk about the connection between imperialism and police brutality. Like, you have to make that connection. This is why people like Malcolm X and Fred Hampton were murdered, because they made that connection. They understood that it is imperialism that drives, of course, through capitalism, but it is the imperialism of our empire and the boot that is spread all over the world that comes home and does the same thing. And until we make that connection, we're gonna be seem like hypocrites to the rest of the world, because we care about people of color here. Apparently, that there's these uprisings, but when it happens outside of our borders, there's literally, nobody's talking about this. I've had Palestinians message me saying, "Hey, please talk about this, because we're being completely shunned. The media is completely not talking about this at all."
Yeah, what happened in 1948, fam?
What, 1948?
Yeah, it says we can't breathe since 1948.
Well, that was when Israel took over, and when they decided
after World War II, the Israeli state, they stopped recognizing the Palestinians.
Yeah, they started. They're in illegal occupation.
Yeah.
That's what happened, and there was no say. There was no let's try to divide this. No, it was an illegal occupation. And again, at this point, people aren't even saying Israel doesn't have the right to exist. I mean, some people may be saying that. What people are saying is, give us back the borders we had.
Yeah.
Give us back the portion of it. Let us exist in a peace. But now it's apartheid, and so now you're going into the territory of you can't have segregation. It doesn't work. We can look into South Africa, etc. So, so
he's got a different one.
Okay, yeah, no, that's not the right one. Hold on, let me pull it up. So we have the there we go. So this video is the Palestinian women and men are responding to the brute and disproportionate violence of Israeli occupation forces with stones, death over dignity. So we can play the video, but I just want you to understand how the media is going to portray this. Is these people were throwing stones, so Israel had the right to retaliate, because that's literally been said before.
Is your volume playing on that one? We got that one in, Oz? Perfect.
The volume was playing?
Was the volume playing?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay.
Perfect.
Okay, we didn't hear it, so it's okay.
So, we just wanted you to get a feeling of what it was like and what people are going through. It's pretty awful. And once again, they're throwing stones. We've seen people shot in the head, sniper style, because of the stones. We should be at that one next, right? We just played the mosque one.
Okay, so now this is Al-Aqsa.
Yeah.
And let's just go ahead and I believe that's a video as well, correct? Yeah, let's just play this.
Go ahead. This next one's really hard to digest too, fam, as well.
Yeah, guys, be very. This one's a little bit difficult. So, disturbing images: an Israeli settler rams his car into Palestinians near Al-Aqsa. The international community and the mainstream media remain silent. So
Here's
there it
the
is.
next one. This is a little hard.
Warning.
So, warning. Play it from the beginning again, Oz. Let them see it.
Yeah, so we've seen instances like that here with the police, not obviously as like forceful as that, but if you recall what happened in was it Virginia in Charlottesville in 2016, that this is more similar to that, right? Where it was like intentional, it's hard to watch, but why is this all happening? And this is happening because Palestinians are getting pushed out of their homes. And these people are basically taking possessions. The Israelis are taking possessions of their homes. New settlements are coming in. And the Palestinians that were there trying to keep hold of their land and their homes are being physically removed from the area. And some are fighting back. And this is in Sheikh Jarrah. And that's what the protests are about. Now, this is a Palestinian man who was shouting during his arrest saying Jerusalem is Arab. Jerusalem is the eternal capital of Palestine. So there's the video. And then, so I'm going to give some context, right? Because again, foreign policy is tends to be really complex. To simplify it for people, the hashtag being used is hashtag save Sheikh Jarrah. And this is how this came about. So in October of last year.
In Instagram?
Yeah, this is on Instagram. This is the Instagram link.
Here we are.
Okay. So in October of last year, an Israeli court ruled to forcibly evict 12 Palestinian families from the East Jerusalem neighborhood of Sheikh Jarrah and hand their properties to Israeli settlers. Some families had only until next month to evacuate their homes. So as a result of over 450 Palestinians face the threat of dispossession. So basically they are going to be removed from their homes, right? The court ruled that each evicted refugee family must pay $20,000 to cover the settlers' legal expenses. Guys, $20,000 to cover their. This is absolutely just.
Hold on one second.
Disgusting.
All right, so there's the Let's Talk Sheikh Jarrah. And the next one, Oz, Fiorella just kind of read about it right there. She talked about it. How much is it right now? $20,000.
Yeah. $20,000. Like to the settlers for taking their homes away. This is like this, guys, like why there's not mass protests in America for this is just disgusting to me. So Sheikh Jarrah is on the next slide, is a neighborhood north of Jerusalem's Old City. It's home to 28 Palestinian refugee families who were ethnically cleansed from their original homes during the 1948 Nakba, which was, of course, what they were referring to when there was that whole cleansing. The Israelis came in to occupy. And this was an agreement between Jordan and the UNRWA in 1956 that these families were supposed to be promised housing and land in Sheikh Jarrah. They were meant to receive ownership title after 3 years. So they were supposed to have their titles after 3 years, but that never happened. Israel conquered the East Jerusalem before the titles materialized. So that was that. On the next slide now, there's forced evictions that aren't new to Sheikh Jarrah. Zionist settler organizations have been trying to seize it since 1972. They were backed by these soldiers, police, and private security firms. Settlers routinely drag Palestinians out of their homes. This has been happening, and throw all of their possessions into the street. Not only are they left homeless without any state support, but Israeli authorities even charge his families extortionate fees to pay for their own evictions. Again, the $20,000. So the next one, they aren't evicting us from our homes. They're evicting us from our humanity, said this person said in 2009, half of Mohammed El Kurd's home in Sheikh Jarrah was seized by settlers. He was 11. Since then, all that has separated us has been drywall and blankets on a clothesline. The blankets are there to block the settlers from harassing us. They often stand by windows exposing themselves or spitting harshly pronounced Arabic curse words at us. I've repeatedly witnessed them beat their dog before unleashing it after us. One night, settlers threw a television at my grandmother, putting her in a coma. While the ambulance drove off, they made a pit fire out of my baby's sister's crib. My sister, 2 years old at the time, struggled with a panic disorder well into the following decade. So this is just like a story from one person. There are many more.
Next slide.
Isn't forced eviction illegal, right? Under international law, it could be a war crime, right? But not according to Israeli law. Laws like the 1950 absentee property law allow these forced evictions and land confiscation. So while Palestinian families are technically allowed to file appeals to the Israeli courts, the courts usually throw them out and they refuse to check on the Palestinians' ownership documents. So many of these families have been living in their homes since the 1950s, decades before the settler organizations laid claim to the land. So they were there first. The systemic complicity of all these institutions, courts, military, police, settler organizations, the government is part of the policy of ethnic cleansing. They want to get rid of these Palestinians, period. The next slide. So Sheikh Jarrah is an illegal issue. It's a political one. This is just one example of Israeli settler colonialism, which aims to create a Jewish majority and not just in East Jerusalem, right? We're seeing this happen right now, but across Israel, Palestine, by establishing segregated Jewish-only settlements. This is why people are saying this is apartheid. Through these measures, the Israeli government seeks to entrench the de facto annexation. That's the whole point. They want to expand. So Mohammed El-Kurd described this as part of a greater system of oppression against Palestinian people. If you're not evicted from your home, it's demolished. If you're not in prison, you're shot in the street. If you're not shot in the street, there's a drone in your sky in the Gaza Strip. If it's not a bomb, it's exile. So this is what they're facing. And the last thing I want to show from here is if Sheikh Jarrah falls, Jerusalem will follow. So Sheikh Jarrah is one of the last fronts that is resisting the colonization today. The settler outpost settlements and police headquarters have surrounded it. Several centuries old communal ties with neighboring communities. Sheikh Jarrah opens to other ancient neighborhoods and is key for controlling them. If it falls, they will too. So this is the last stronghold, right? And if this goes down, I believe then yes, the complete and total takeover by Israel will
says
happen.
Losing Sheikh Jarrah would represent the loss of Jerusalem's Palestinian identity. It signals a horrifying fate for the remaining dwindling indigenous population. Where you at, progressives?
Yeah.
Where you at?
Seriously.
That was the Instagram one. So
okay. So because it was Mother's Day, they did this whole thread on the Sheikh Jarrah mothers. A lot of women, you have to understand that there are a lot of women and children in Palestine. And this is, of course, due to the fact that a lot of the men were killed in battle. And that's what's happening. So women are a lot of the activists and the leaders of the Palestinian movement. So you have the Save Sheikh Jarrah hashtag. This Mother's Day, we are thinking of the Palestinian mothers who are fighting on the front lines of Sheikh Jarrah against evictions by Israeli settlers. And you guys can see that picture there. The Mother's Day we remember, this Mother's Day, the next one below it, this Mother's Day we remember the late Rifqa Al-Kurd, 103-year-old Palestinian grandmother from Sheikh Jarrah who resisted her home being evicted by Israeli settlers for over 10 years. She paved the way of resistance for the movement behind Save Sheikh Jarrah today. Do you have that up there? It's the one below it. It's the tweet thread. It's the one below that one.
yeah, if you click on that tweet right there, you can go below it. Yeah.
No, it's the same. It's the same one.
All right. Read the first intro to the tweet so I can get it for you.
Yeah. So the first one was this Mother's Day. We are thinking of Palestinian mothers, and then right below it, this Mother's Day we remember the late.
What's it on the folder so he knows?
This
Sheikh Jarrah mothers.
Yeah, that's the first one.
All right. Sorry, guys.
It's okay.
I lost my spot there.
Right there.
Sanctuary mothers. Okay. There
Right there. We're going into that thread.
There you go. There we go.
All right.
I think we got it.
Okay. So yeah, so this woman was the 103-year-old activist, and she fought for a long time, and they were remembering her for her resistance. And the next one, this Mother's Day, we are thinking of the mother of Saeed Odeh, who we're going to go into his story, the 16-year-old Palestinian boy who was shot and killed by Zionist forces 4 days ago at that time. May all our mothers of martyrs receive their due justice. So there's that. This Mother's Day, we are thinking of 60-year-old Palestinian mother Faima al-Rub, who was shot and killed by Zionist forces 7 days ago. She was stripped from ever celebrating another Mother's Day again. Hashtag Free Palestine. And that's the last segment I wanted to read on that. And so another thing I have to point out as being an election integrity person is the U.S. meddling in Palestinian elections, right? Yep. And this is back to the next Instagram slide. Yeah. And there you go. And just let me see. Okay, so we're going to read all of them on this quickly. So let me just bring that up. So let's talk Palestinian elections and why they were canceled, right? And this is, of course, this is a wealth of knowledge if you guys want to check them out. This is the Instagram Let's Talk Palestine. So on April 30th, Mahmoud Abbas, the head of the Palestinian Authority, PA, announced that the legislative elections scheduled for May 22nd would be postponed to an unspecified date, effectively canceling them. Here are 8 things to know. So, number 1, Israel refused to let Palestinians in East Jerusalem vote. The PA requested permission from Israel for 6,300 Palestinians.
Next slide, Oz.
There we go. From East Jerusalem to vote in post offices, as in previous elections. Israel hasn't formally replied, but signaled it wouldn't let them, as it would challenge Israeli claims to the entire city. Jerusalemites can participate in elections for the Palestinian Legislative Council as stipulated in the Oslo Accords. An election without East Jerusalem means surrendering the eternal capital of the Palestinian people. That's not an option, so they don't want that. 2, Abbas and his party, Fatah, would have probably lost. Fatah's list would likely have received fewer votes than the rest of the list, only 28% according to the polls. The election would have likely seen Hamas and independent left-wing candidates gain power. So they had to stop this election, right? Yep. Because Hamas cannot take power or there would be a revolt. There have been no elections for the Palestinian Legislative Council since 2006, which Hamas democratically won. After 16 years of dictatorship, Abbas's grip on power would have been weakened. Slide 3. Or point 3, Abbas dismissed solutions to let East Jerusalemites vote. A whistleblower said that at least 4 workable options were presented to allow East Jerusalemites to vote without Israel's permission. 1, placing voting stations in the UN facilities. 2, placing them in European embassies. 3, electronic voting. 4, placing polling stations in Jerusalem. Analysts said that there were even more options, including some to pressure Israel into cooperation. Abbas' refusal to even consider a solution suggests that the real reason for the election cancellation is to preserve power, using Israel's authoritarianism as an excuse. So they don't even have some of the Palestinian members that want.
Oh yeah, Abbas is not really well liked over there.
Exactly.
He's no Yasser Arafat. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So they're of course in coordination with Israel, which sucks for the Palestinians.
It really does suck.
4, Israel is cracking down on political activity in Jerusalem. The military regime has issued orders against Palestinian election-related events, and its police have threatened hotels which hosted such events. Ghada Abu Rabi, a Fatah candidate, was given a written order to come to the Israeli police station where she was warned not to participate in the elections. So they're pressuring these people to stop it. This is a key illustrator of life under apartheid, where Israel strips Palestinians of all political rights while allowing Israelis civil freedoms. So again, it's not an equal rights society. 5, Israel and the U.S. wanted the elections to be canceled. Notice, and the U.S. Israel and the U.S. feared a potential Hamas victory. Hamas victory does not bode well for the United States either, as took place in 2006. This would be a nightmare scenario for the 2 imperial powers. In March, 2 Israeli and American intelligence officials met with Abbas. They threatened him and attempted to interfere with the list running for election. This is the United States interfering in other elections yet again. And you think that your elections are fair and free? 6, it may tear Fatah apart further. Fatah was already fragmented. Marwan Barghouti, the most popular Palestinian political figure, had joined the dissident Freedom List. The list is led by Nassar al-Qudwa, a veteran ex-Fatah diplomat and Yasser Arafat's nephew. Yeah. Another list is headed by ex-Fatah member Mohammed Dalan. All these lists challenge Fatah's monopoly. At the age of 85, Abbas won't last much longer. Candidates Jibril Rajoub, Mahir Farah, and Hussein al-Sheikh saw the election as an opportunity to prove their leadership ambitions. Postponing the elections has angered them and may create deeper divides within Fatah. So they're divided within themselves as a party. 7, this risks fragmenting the Palestinian movement further. After years of hostility, Fatah and Hamas, the 2 biggest parties, had finally come to an agreement on the elections. They understood national unity was especially important at a time when the entire Palestinian liberation struggle is facing an existential question. Since the announcement, though, all opposition parties and lists have come out in forceful condemnation of Abbas's decision. It has increased division. So again, this is perfectly working into the hands of Israel and U.S. They do want more division. Elections won't solve anything. Yep, they're at a point where that's not going to happen. The Oslo Accords, next slide, never intended this PA to be democratic. Okay, it was designed to prop up these specific groups, mainly Fatah, while marginalizing the large sections of Palestinian society that remain critical of the Accords. Foreign actors have actively supported the suppression. The most obvious example is when Israel, the U.S., and the U.K. helped Fatah overthrow Hamas, which had democratically won. Again, we're going back to that.
2006.
Exactly. And so Israel and the PA have since cooperated to target political opponents with arrest, intimidation, and torture. What's the point of an election if Israel can intervene if it doesn't like the winner? And not just Israel, obviously, but backed by the United States.
Sounds like the United States.
Exactly. What's the point of elections if they can intervene? So in this authoritarian context, of course, elections may escalate grievances between groups that refuse to take part, while distracting opposition running for election and providing a cover for legitimacy and illegitimate leaders. So there's that. And guys, like
divide and conquer.
This is the key thing, right? They're always gonna divide and conquer. So I have to go over what happened with a 16-year-old Palestinian teen, Saeed Odeh, right? So
on May 5th.
So on May 5th, 2021, right? Just last week, 5 days ago, 16-year-old Palestinian teen Saeed Odeh was on a walk with his friend when he was shot and killed by Israeli soldiers. This sounds vaguely familiar. And they were at the entrance of their home village, Udala, when Israeli forces fired live ammunition at them. Several fatal bullets to Saeed's shoulder and pelvis eventually killed him. The Israeli soldiers then shot Saeed's friend after he tried to approach Saeed's body to provide him aid, wounding the friend. And
next slide. There you go.
Okay. And then as Saeed lay dying, Israeli troops prevented a Palestinian ambulance from reaching Saeed for at least 15 minutes. So they blocked any aid to him. So by the time the ambulance reached him, it was too late, and Saeed had succumbed to his injuries.
Can you imagine just bleeding out, dying that way, ladies and gentlemen? How disgusting is that? And that happens on a regular basis to the Palestinians.
And it's like I said, it's mostly children and women, right? And then since 2000, on average, the Israeli army has killed one Palestinian child every 3 days.
Jesus.
We saw that movie, Gaza Fights for Freedom. We've talked about it several times. Documentary. This is true. It's always women and children. The murder of Saeed Odeh comes after an Israeli soldier killed Ali Abu Aliyah, a 15-year-old Palestinian, on December 4th, 2020, his birthday. Ali was only one of several Palestinian children murdered by Israel in 2020, and another was killed last January. And I think that's it. Yes, that's it for that. And So here are some of the videos, some more videos of these Israeli soldiers opening fire on these worshipers. Just so you know, this isn't the latest. This has been happening now. And we're just going to play some of the videos because people need to see this to understand why we're outraged, why we should all be outraged.
All right, Oz, you're on the right video, brother. Holy oh.
So, yeah.
You see the troops coming out over there, filing in there, war style. People are throwing rocks at them. Oh, I have a 90-year-old man throwing rocks at me. I have to shoot him in the head with a sniper bullet. Please, man. Enough is enough with this crap. You can't even play games and say, well, Israel has the right to exist. Nobody's saying that they don't.
Yeah, that's just a cop-out now.
It's a cop-out at this point, you know?
And yeah, they're just praying. I mean, people, we're outraged here when, an asshole takes a gun and shoots at people. What was it there was a mosque and then there was the Jewish temple, right?
Yeah.
That happened. Like, this is happening like every day now here.
Yeah.
Like, this is like,
by the support of the US of A.
By the same weapons that you freak out about here.
Yeah.
Like the same weapons, guys.
There's multiple people with them on the streets.
There's no separation, and I'm gonna keep saying that until I'm blue in the face. So Ali Mirza retweeted this video by Arwa Ibrahim. Okay, absolutely horrendous scenes from inside Al-Aqsa Mosque, and this was May 7th, and they have continued since then. Compound where Israeli forces were attacked. Peaceful worshipers holding night prayer. So they were attacked at night, and then earlier, today for us, they had been attacked as well during the day, as you saw the video. So this is from before. Our entire government protects Israel. They make sure there's no accountability. They call everybody who criticizes them an anti-Semite. So the next one, this one's really hard. Palestinian children cry in fear as Israeli forces open fire on worshippers at Al-Aqsa Mosque. Again, 250 injured. This was on May 7th. The mosque was completely desecrated, stepped on. Journalists, the elderly, women and children were shot, and medical sites attacked.
Yeah.
We can't even go in there because they're shooting journalists. This has been happening. They've killed journalists before. This is, let's just look at this. This is what sparked the uprising.
Yeah.
عم بيصلوا شايفين كيف كانوا عم بيصلوا شوفوا كم قنبلة صوت طلعوا على بيصلوا طبعا القوات من ورانا لهيك رحت القوات من ورانا وزي ما شفتوا كيف بيطلقوا قنابل حتى على المصلين اللي بيصلوا الشباب.
Okay.
The next one's a pretty crazy one too as well, fam.
Yeah, so Orenziv said, watch, Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem, Ari King, tells a Palestinian activist it's a pity he wasn't shot in the head. This was May 7th, again, at Sheikh Jarrah. Yeah, I mean, there's no. I mean, how do you reform that, right? You gotta have like you can't have an apartheid state like this. This is why people supported the BDS movement. Now, Sora posted, the world should be ashamed, and we should right now. I am ashamed. Look at Yemen today. Could stay supporting Palestine. Yemen, that is undergoing their own humanitarian crisis, of course, through Saudi Arabia, through us again. And look how they took to the streets in support, not just a few hundred, thousands and thousands of people, guys.
But everybody wants to sit here and complain about the pronouns and everything that's going on over here and whatnot, and the way our citizens treat each other, and ignore the millions of Muslims that we kill every year with our sanctions, with our bombs, with just our support of these tyrannical regimes and shit. I mean, enough is enough.
Can we get closer?
So let's click on the first top picture over there.
Yeah.
We want to show that picture. There we go. Look at that.
Yep.
Look at that, ladies and gentlemen. That's in Yemen, and they're going through their own thing right now. You know what I'm saying? One of the worst humanitarian situations.
It's like, yeah, dude, but come on.
We're going through COVID. Wear your mask.
Yeah, seriously.
Please.
Like, oh, God. Ajamu always has something good to say, right?
Ajamu's great.
So on the next tweet, on the next thing, Ajamu Baraka, who has always been talking about, imperialism, says, have you seen what Israelis are doing to Israel in Israel? Folks, let's be honest. Israel is not only an apartheid settler colonial state, it is a fascist state. Yes, this is fascism. How can anyone with an ounce of morality justify Israel's treatment of Palestinians? I mean, you can't justify this. You can't.
This is it.
I mean, there's no two sides. No, this is like very one-sided.
You know what Joe Biden once said? Well, I am a Zionist.
Yeah.
Oh, and
thank you for reminding us of that, Pasta.
Oh, yeah, I am a Zionist. And what's his name says Kamala Harris is a little darling of AIPAC. But let's hear this squad just virtue signal and yell about shit, but not hold anybody in their own goddamn party accountable.
Yep. And as we're wrapping up this section in the last two spots, and then we have one more section. Anthony Blinken, of course, said this. He said,
she's got the first tweet up. Yeah.
It's the third one.
Third tweet.
It's below it.
I don't think he can get to it, but we'll read it.
Okay.
We'll read it.
Okay. Yeah, that's. If you just scroll down, it just should be. There you go. Oh, we will continue. We will also.
A little bit, Oz. 1 second.
That one.
There you go.
Yeah. So we will also continue to push back forcefully when we see countries undermine the international order, pretend the rules we've all agreed to don't exist, or violate them at will. For the system to deliver, all countries must abide by it and put in the work for its success.
Fuck you.
So you are going to push back forcefully on countries that we sanction, on countries that won their independence, but you're not going to push back forcefully on Israel. I don't see any pushback on Israel at all. In fact, I see a defense, a running cover, a carrying water for Israeli war crimes and humanitarian crimes. Now, this is violating international law. I have not seen the United States at all. I've only seen a few of the congresswomen. Of course, they had to be Muslim. Condemning this. Rashida Tlaib condemned it. I mean, but other than that, I haven't seen.
Don't take that off. I want to read that one sentence there again, by the way. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I just said, pretend the rules we've agreed to don't exist. What fucking rules did everybody agree to? No, the imperialists made the goddamn rules, and now you're getting upset because people aren't freaking following them.
Yeah.
Because they're fighting for their goddamn lives.
They're fighting for their independence from the U.S. imperialist
Christmas.
Group. And this is what I wanted to show to you guys because I think it's important, and I don't mean to, say one issue isn't important. I meant to say both are. Because this is what's happening. The truth is, and this is by somebody who is a Palestinian artist, right? They posted this. Look, the imperial boot of the United States through Israel, you see the Israeli flag there, is on the neck of a Palestinian man. And you can see the world covering their eyes. Nope, we don't care. We're not going to look. We're not going to focus on this. We're not going to have marches. We're not going to make hashtags. We're just going to fucking,
Can't hear you.
No, that's it. We're going to ignore it. Meanwhile, when you see George Floyd, of course, the United States is like, look at this. This is completely unfair. It's the same thing. That is unfair. This is unfair. There's no separation. Our international foreign policy is our domestic policy. There is absolutely no, there is no line dividing it. The only difference is the geography. But other than that, it's the same type of violence placed on citizens, and you have yet to see it because we haven't even seen what these people are doing now. They're imposing fascistic authoritarian measures on you on your internet abilities to look and watch what you want. They're censoring everybody. Now they're going against protesters in the street. They're trying to make it felonies for people to protest all over the United States, not just in Florida. Now that's setting a precedent, and that's on the ground, of course. And we're talking about big tech is another way they are suppressing you, and the jailing of journalists, the complete disregard for press freedoms through Julian Assange, and now this in Palestine. You're not hearing about it in mainstream media. They don't care. They don't. They support the United States is justifying Israeli war crimes.
And this whole the Republicans are bad. Blah blah blah. There's so many Democrats that are just so pro AIPAC. There's Zionists, Chuck Schumer, Joe Biden. AIPAC has been just caressing Kamala Harris, but yet you never see the squad call any of them out. Ever. They're just as responsible as the Republicans that support this shit too as well.
And if
it's not just one side.
And if they do call them out, it's very light. Like I know Rashida Tlaib has said something, but I know Ilhan said something at one point. And remember, in the beginning when she got in, she said something. They tried to paint her as the biggest anti-Semite there was. If you recall, they were almost trying to get rid of her because she said something about Israel.
Bling bling.
Like it's insane. And this is like you can't. They're like you have to somehow worship or give your blood to a loyalty to Israel when you become a Congress member, because all of them, without exception, are weak when it comes to this issue.
Yeah, terrible. And they, the squad has said nothing of, that's where we're at. You just got to make it smaller. The squad has said nothing of Afghanistan, and they're virtue signaling on Israel as far as I'm concerned, because that's all it is. Right. Yeah. And they're not really taking serious actions, whatnot.
What they should be doing is starting like a protest. Say, we're going to protest in front of the embassy, and we're going to have solidarity with Palestinians, whatever the hell it is, even if that's symbolic.
Why don't you have balls and tell Joe Biden to cut aid to Israel if they're going to do something like that? Say, Joe, why don't you cut aid to Israel until they stop doing what they're doing?
AIPAC shouldn't exist. AIPAC shouldn't exist. Things like that. Israel runs pretty much. Israel interferes in our elections. Israel interferes in our economy. Israel is the one interfering, not Russia. Yeah. Like that's, and we allow that interference. It's a symbiotic relationship. So let's just read a couple of these super rays.
Super rays, yeah. God, it's just a shame. It really is a shame. Every time you think about this right now, and I don't want to hear any more excuses that Israel has a right to exist. Nobody's ever said that they don't have the right to exist. They don't have the right to kill the Palestinians and suppress the Palestinians the way they're doing it. And I have had enough of it. There is no two sides to this coin. We see a lot of deaths on the Palestinian side, a few on the Israeli side, and you see Israelis shooting people for people throwing stones at them. Enough is enough, man. I ain't standing by this
and
shit
that's
no
even
more.
Being kind, because technically Israelis, Jewish people are just a group. They weren't ever a state. And the fact that happened was already like, okay, fine. Like Israel has a right to exist. Okay. People made that concession a long time ago. So using that is no longer applicable. It just isn't.
Yeah, it's disgusting, because the same thing that happened to Jewish people in World War II are the same thing that they are doing right now to the Palestinians, and it's disgusting, and everybody's ignoring it. Nobody's even paying attention to it. I mean, we have all this death and destruction going around the world, a lot of U.S. intervention causing these things along with Israel, and we say nothing. We say nothing. We don't we don't want to hear anything. It's terrible and it's disgusting. And it's the most racist thing we can do is to go around and bomb indigenous people in their homelands and kill them.
That's exactly what we're doing.
It's disgusting. So let's get with it. Let's wake up, progressives. Let's get on the ball. Thomas Dickinson, thank you so much for the super great contribution. As always, on the couch. And so is it from Joni Bug. Joni Bug, we love you. Great journalism. Thank you, Joni Bug. David Guevara. The U.S. should invade and occupy Israel to protect the Palestinian women, children, and old men from the Israeli, European, racist, colonist, fascist settlers, which we don't even talk about that. The Jews were there for so long in Israel. Those aren't the Jewish people that are running the state now. These are the European Jews that have come over and taken over. They're imperialist.
Yeah. Emblem fate.
Emblem fate. Remember Palestine every single time America pretends to care about Muslim Uyghurs in China.
Yep.
They don't care. It's fake humanitarian is their favorite imperialistic tool. Yes, it's fake humanitarianism.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
I tweeted that. I forgot to put it in there. Just how much the media talks about the Uyghur genocide, right? The Uyghur genocide. They're like constantly talking about it nonstop, all over. Like, how dare you, Fiorella, not support this? You are supporting a genocide by not calling out China and all of this and that. Like, sure, we can talk about China's measures, why they have to be authoritarian in some instances. You can talk about all that, but all of that is completely blown up in mainstream media. Compare that to Palestinians and how we don't hear about it at all. It's not about our humanitarian interventionism. Don't ever let them use that fucking excuse again, because we prop up the how we must go into China to protect the Uyghurs, but they don't ever say how we need to go into Israel, Palestine to protect the Palestinians. They never fucking say that, because it's not about helping these people. We never have ever cared about that. It's about money, resources, and power. And that's all it comes down to. We have zero. It's not convenient for us to take the side of Palestinians. We in fact facilitate everything for Israel to do this, not only through their elections, but through the weapons that we supply and through the funding. All of our funding goes to Israel. When we look at the defense budget, you see the millions and millions and billions of dollars that go into funding this. This is what it funds.
Yeah, and they get Medicare for all over there in Israel. Do we get it over here? Come on, guys, put it together, ladies and gentlemen. Enough is enough. We really, to tell you the truth, I really wish we had everybody says, oh, this nationalist mindset is awful. Well, I wish we had a nationalist mindset where we just pulled out of all of the bases all over the world and came on home. Right, just protect home. I'll let you play military around our borders over here. Yeah, you can play G.I. Joe over here in America. You can have a wall. You can do whatever you want. Just pull out the bases and stop causing death and destruction all over the place, and I'll give you that. How about that? Okay, enough is enough. Get out. Stop funding this shit. We have to. This is just bullshit. And I bet in 2016, a friend of mine told me there were a lot of Palestinians in 2016 that were praying that the Jewish man won the elections over here in the United States, because it's not really about religion here. As much as about imperialism.
100%.
All right, guys, let's get on to the last story of the day. We need to get through it. We'll peel through it really quick. As you know, you sent us, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. You sent us to Maricopa County to go in and witness this audit. And there are some things that are happening over there that are awesome. I know when Johnny went in there and he looked and he got to film some of it, he was really just happy and giddy actually seeing an actual audit take place, because he's been hunting down and trying to find real audits and been finding fugazi audits here in LA, the ones they talked about they had in Arizona, and he was actually witnessing a real audit. However, fam, to have a real forensic audit, you need everything.
Yeah.
We went up, we showed there, we talked to people, and the first video we're going to play is, his name is Ken Bennett. He's the ex-Secretary of State of Maricopa County, of Arizona in general, and he is the head person running the audit. He was selected by the state Senate to do so, and he told us a few things that are really disturbing. Let's start with the first video where he's talking about the access denied for passwords to look at the software and the administrative logs, as well as the routers to check on election night to see if the internet was cooperating or talking to the tabulation machines. Here's Ken Bennett with the first video.
Is that you got over some of the software, or some of the actual Dominion software? Are you guys getting a hold of any of that to see what happened during the election?
Well, we received all the machines that were used in the election, and an IT company that is contracted with the prime contractor who was selected by the Senate to do the audit. They have downloaded all of the forensic data off of those machines, but they ran into a second password in some of the ballot scanning machines that are used out at the polling locations that Maricopa County is telling us that they don't have that password.
Okay.
And without that second password, we can't get into the administrative functions of the machine. So
those are the logs, right? That will tell you who accessed the machine.
Those are the router logs and things like that. So there's two different things that we have not been we have not yet received from Maricopa County, and that is, well, among a few others, but one of the things that we haven't received is the secondary password that allows our IT auditor to get in and see the administrative functions of the machine and how those are set up. And they say they've given us all the passwords they have, so that must mean that the only people that have the passwords that we need are the Dominion people. So that concerns us a little bit, that Maricopa County is essentially saying that they don't have all the passwords to their own election management system.
So what can you not obtain without that specific password?
You can't get into the administrative function of the machine.
Which is important.
I think so.
We want to know.
That's where his setup is.
Exactly. We want to know who touched what.
And then there's also the routers and the hubs and things like that that would have logs in them as to was anything hooked up to the internet, which is not supposed to be, and we hope it wasn't. But to verify that, we would need the router logs, and the Splunk logs, I think they're called. And those are way beyond my level of expertise in IT. I'm a truck driver and an accountant. So,
from what I understand is.
Okay, so basically two things right there that they need. They need the passwords to get all the administrative processes and logs and anything they have over there as far as who did what went in there. They need that to
the night of the election.
Yeah, the night of the election, and even before or during whatnot, they need that the passwords. And it is a little scary, the fact that the Maricopa County says, well, we don't have them. Either they're lying, or the fact that it's just Dominion that operates all that stuff.
Right.
And Dominion is pretty much running their election. Go ahead, Van.
Yeah, I was just going to say that means you don't have control of your elections. You have no, literally, you don't have control of your elections. If a private company has a password and you don't have the password, one, like you said, either you're lying or the private company is not giving you the password either. Yeah. And you're not letting us know that because you don't want people to freak out. But either way, you're not getting the password. So these people are like, if you don't have access to that, then that means that anybody can go in there and control your elections. Like, that means your elections are private, not public. And they're publicly funded private elections.
Publicly funded, privately
Just
run.
So you know, that's what that means, essentially. Yeah.
And the second part he talked about was the Splunk logs, I believe he called them, whatnot, or Splunk logs, whatever. It's the routers, okay? Mm-hmm. The routers, and this is something that with the interview today, when I asked Sonny Borelli, state senator, I said, what's the most damning piece of evidence where you said, wow, we need to have an election? For him, it was the fact that if these tabulation machines were hooked up to the internet, that's a big no-no, because he knows it can be controlled from anywhere. And they will not give over these routers or these logs, and they're making the excuse that it's the blueprint of the city, and if they give them over, it's going to put law enforcement in danger. It's a bunch of shit, but those two things that we did not get right over there are very, very important. The third one is obtaining the actual wet signatures on the envelopes, which Ken Bennett will talk about right here.
Has there been any successes as far as trying to get that? Or?
So far, they've said that they have given us all the passwords that they have to give us, and that they can't give us the router logs because the sheriff's department somehow uses that internet system and other county employees, and we might end up compromising Social Security numbers and county employee health records. Okay. So we're all kind of wondering why those are compromised by getting information from the election department.
So we don't have everything there. What about this I heard about with the signatures? Are we going to authenticate and check the signatures, or is that not part of this audit?
It's not part of the scope of work for cyber ninjas.
Okay.
But I think it would be of value to have some way of it, at least checking the images on the envelopes. Maybe not comparing them to the voter signatures yet, but just seeing, were there signatures on all the envelopes?
Yeah.
If we find a bunch of blanks, then maybe we need to...
Have you gotten all the envelopes?
No, we don't have the envelopes yet, but we have the images of the signature boxes that were supposed to be from the envelopes.
Gotcha. But we don't have the actual envelopes yet.
Not yet.
That's important too as well. Okay. So those are a couple of things we're into there.
That's important, fam. All right. Well, we talk about, first of all, do you have the one tweet right below that? I believe it's the Maricopa is giving you the excuse. Just scroll right below that one right there. Put that up there, that picture, not the tweet. Yeah, put the picture up real quick. It says routers are the blueprint to the county. Providing that information put lives at risk. They're quoting the movie A Few Good Men. It puts lives at risk.
Well,
we can't do it, fam.
Yeah, and they're saying that like it would just give the Social Security. Like it's all bullshit because the United States government literally spies on Americans, warrantless surveillance. Since the Patriot Act and then the Espionage Act, all of these things that have been happening, right? They don't care about breaking code to spy on you. This isn't about that. This is about them finding an excuse to say we're protecting their privacy, but really to cover their ass.
Yeah, and the wet signatures, actually not having the physical envelopes itself and just having digital images. And that's when I started diving into, I always dive into who has the contracts of the mail-in ballots, right? It's important for me to understand that because we want to understand the chain of custody of where these ballots are going to, where they end up, if they don't meet their mark, who gets a hold of them. Is there... are they logged down as being shredded or whatever? None of that stuff is in play right now. So if you have a situation where it looks like it appears in this particular election where you have way more votes, that it's a situation of clustering and putting out more votes rather than suppression, taking it away. Now, we don't know that until we go through this process and find out what's what. But if you look at the whole mail-in process, and I have John Brakey here. We did a great interview with John Brakey and Brandon Slayton. I call him Chairman Slayton because he's the chairman of the Maricopa County Libertarian Party. But John Brakey, he's a progressive Democrat. He's a little too friendly to some of the Democrats that go after him hard.
Yeah.
He's really nice about it. The guy's a sweetheart. But he's election integrity activist. When it comes to in transparency, he doesn't play team sports. And he explained the mail-in process and how it takes place in Maricopa. Take a look at this really quick clip over here. It's 3 minutes, but man, does it tell you a lot. And you have to say to yourself, how can we have a system in play like this and really have accountability with our elections? Take a look. From the right, we expect it. The left, we don't. But listen, when you talk about the breaking method, when you talk about ballot images, when we talk about open source, that's the tabulations part. I call that the back of the house. We've done a lot of extensive reporting on going to precincts. I'm a restaurant guy, and I understand how to run a restaurant and the efficiency of it. We call that the front of the house. But there's the third part we have to talk about. I want to talk about really briefly because it really shined a light in this election. And that's what Jimmy Carter and Jim Baker said in 2014 in a bipartisan commission, that the area most open to fraud in elections is our absentee and mail-in ballots. We have a situation. I just want you to explain really quick. We talk about Runback, and I want you people to learn that name. It's K&H in L.A. We have to start looking at these contracts on how these ballots are made, how they're distributed, when they come back, what happens to them. We got to get the chain of custody. Can you explain really briefly what Runback is and what they do and how they check the images as far as the signatures with Maricopa County?
Well, this is how it works. Runback is one of the largest vendors in the United States. They do Georgia. They do a lot of states. They sell equipment that does ballot on demand, and they supply that. And when they mail out, they'll mail it the whole state of Georgia from Arizona, I believe. Yeah. And I'm not sure as a fact, but I did hear people in Georgia saying my ballot came from Runback, okay? And Runback will print the ballot. They will mail the ballot. And somebody has to. I have no real problem with that, okay? And then Maricopa will pick up the ballots. They'll deliver them back to Runback because they have what they call a Pitney Bow machine. They'll remove the outer envelope, and then they'll be exposed to signature. And then they run it through the machine, they take a picture of that signature. And then they send a picture over to Maricopa County.
A digital picture.
A digital picture. And I have a problem with that.
So Runback mails them, they eventually get them, canvass them, take a picture, and then send a digital pticture back to Maricopa County.
Prove the signature.
So it's not approved by three people, a Republican, Democrat, and a Libertarian?
Oh, no, it's because they don't know. They don't know on a general ballot if it's a Republican or Democrat, but don't be fooled, they do.
Yeah.
Okay? Because they know how we vote. The Help America Vote Act. But before we go into that, is that Runback will take a picture, send it over to Maricopa, and then a person will validate the signature from another picture. I have a problem because I think one should be a wet signature, because maybe, and I'm not saying this is happening, but I have to be able to look at what's possible. Let's say that you move from Arizona, you move to New York, they connect the database, they know pasta that you never went back into your voter file and ever looked at it. So maybe some machine might print your signature on a friggin' envelope, okay? And then they take a picture of it and somebody verifies it on the other end. I think that that's one of the things that I'm concerned about that needs to be looked at, okay? And I think that they should not be verifying a picture of a picture with another picture.
Of a signature.
Right. I want to see a wet signature, and that's how Pima County does it. They do a very good job in Pima County on
Yeah.
So you see, fam, it's ludicrous.
Yeah.
The vendor mails out your ballot.
Mm-hmm.
It gets sent to Maricopa County. They don't even open and canvass them there. They take them back to Runbeck. Runbeck then uses a machine which takes a digital image and sends it over to Maricopa County. So now it's a digital image being compared to scrutinize a ballot instead of a lot of rooms where it's the old school way where you have a Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Green Party, whoever wants to get in the room and verifies the signatures. It is complete fugaziness in Maricopa County when it comes to their absentee ballots and the mail-in ballots. That is not a way you should be doing things. And companies like Runbeck and K&H are, once again, not only is their software proprietary, their ownership is proprietary. It's a zombie company of another zombie company of a hedge fund, which your information is sealed and you can't know who it is. So we don't even know who's actually pulling the strings and who to hold accountable when it comes to this situation.
Our elections are complete shit, and they're not secure at all. And anybody who tells you that election fraud or any talk of it is a conspiracy theory is just absolutely ignorant of everything that we've been talking about. I have encouraged people to debate me on this issue. They just run away. They make assessments calling us right-wingers. We were talking about this, but they can't even like hold a candle to what we're talking about. When you're talking about these things, it comes down to the fact that we have proprietary software. We don't have access to any of this information that should be public. You want people to dispel conspiracy theories about ballots coming in from China? Then fucking prove it. Prove it. Just prove it. Crush this whole thing. Prove it. Have audits. Don't make audits the bad guy here. It's the system that allows people to question it and have distrust in it that is the bad guy.
Yeah. And when we talk about ballot harvesting, right, we talk about what? It's the worst thing to the chain of custody. There is no chain of custody with ballot harvesting. Other people pick up multiple ballots, bring them on in, put them in drop boxes, whatnot. There's no cameras on those drop boxes.
Zero.
They used to call the mail-in ballot the secret ballot because you don't know where it's coming from, who it's coming from. And especially the Democratic establishment has really pushed this kind of narrative, saying it's more accessible, whatnot. So here, this part makes me laugh because what's going on is they're trying to shut down this audit. They're calling it a fraud. They're saying it's fugazi. They're saying it's a bunch of Republicans, blah, blah, blah. And now they're trying to use an excuse to get Biden's DOJ involved to come in and shut the whole thing down, citing, listen to this, fam, security issues. Here's Secretary Katie Hobbs, who wrote a letter. The settlement in the ADP versus FAN, which is FAN is the Senate president, the Republican who's actually been the head of all this thing of getting it done, requires the Senate to have procedures to protect our ballots, election equipment, and data. Okay, you've outsourced all the information to data to private companies. You've pushed ballot harvesting, which have nothing to do with the chain of custody, and in fact, they blow it. And now you want to sit there and say, we have security issues?
It's just the
Get
utmost
the hell out of
hypocrisy.
here. Today, I put the Senate on notice that the security shortfalls remain and must be addressed under the agreement. And then you have a letter from Katie Hobbs. I'm not going to even get into it.
The security.
It's a freaking
The security.
joke.
Since when did you fucking care about the security of our elections?
Yes.
Since when did these people, establishment Democrats, establishment Republicans, I have never once heard them say we need to secure our elections unless it's a gaslighting mechanism like this. We need to secure our elections only when it's convenient for us. Like we're talking about her saying shit about, oh, they left some laptops unoccupied and blah, blah, blah. Dude, there were cameras, and we're going to go over this. There were cameras at every little table, at every Lazy Susan. Cameras right above these people's heads. You cannot do shit. There's media there. There's a guy with from the AP with a giant-ass lens that could literally probably see down into your gut, and you're going to tell me that like it's insecure? No, dude. And there's rangers protecting the security. Come on.
It's ridiculous. And you can't. I would be cautious to pick my nose in that room because there's so many freaking cameras. Seriously, there's cameras everywhere.
It's like the CCTV.
Forget about it. And you're not getting away with anything. And it's funny when you were up there. I know, fam, that you saw them and you were seeing these mainstream media cucks just talk and the way they're actually trying to talk. And like, I'm like, you don't know shit about elections over here, and you're supposed to be their expert. Get out of here. But the mainstream media, MSNBC, CNN, they provide a big
Arizona
platform to go in there and say, oh yeah, all these, let me tell your stories, but don't go on and push back or anything. This is a joke. Here she is, Secretary Hobbs, who is just a chicken, you know what, going on MSNBC so she can spread her bullshit propaganda.
What's going on here? We actually have laws in this country about how you handle ballots and recounts and audits, and we suspect you might be breaking some of them.
Yeah, absolutely. That letter really came as a surprise to no one. These concerns were raised earlier during this process, and everything we've seen in terms of how this so-called audit is being handled doesn't allay any of these concerns.
Yeah, and this is the interesting thing. There's an issue. You could have an issue if you want with the votes and whether they were counted properly and all that kind of stuff. But the issue that part of the issue that the Deputy Attorney General and you are concerned about is just the methodology, the chain of custody, the why is there this private company involved? How are we assuring that no one's remarking the ballots? How do we make sure that those ballots are actually safe and not altered? Limiting access to journalists. In fact, the Attorney General's office stated that they're getting a lot of this information from news reports, which also shouldn't be the way it's going on.
Exactly. And I want to point out that the only reason that there are news reports about what's going on is because we had to go to court to force them to allow journalists in the room. The court order also forced them to provide their procedures, which helped illuminate the fact that there is not enough security measures in place to assure the security of the ballots. And the folks involved in this have tried to brush off these concerns and say, you don't need to worry about it. The ballots are secure. And I want to really emphasize that it is not just the actual physical security of the ballots, although that has come into question anyway, so I don't necessarily buy their assurances. But we're talking about the actual handling of the ballots, how they are moved from one box to another, how they're put together in batches when they're being counted. They're not being handled in a way that preserves the record of the election, so that if somebody needed to go back and somehow do an actual real audit or recount, it wouldn't be meaningful. They have destroyed the chain of custody of these ballots.
The chain of custody.
Ballots came into ballot harvesting without a chain of custody, and the Democrats, they were cheering it on. It's all about accessibility, fam. It's accessibility, but now you care about the chain of custody.
She doesn't even know what the fuck the chain of custody is. These fucking people are literally lying to your face. They're gaslighting.
Oh my God.
They're taking everything we've been talking about and turning it around and pretending they suddenly care.
Yeah.
Like this is what chain of custody? When she says you don't have security for your ballots, we can't even look into these real what signatures. We can't look into the machines. We can't get the router access. We can't get the fucking password. And you're talking gaslighting about having a real audit when you haven't had a real audit. This is a real audit. They fucking gaslight. They're literally flipping everything.
Yeah,
they're making us out to be conspiracy theorists when we're the ones telling the truth.
Yeah.
We're the only ones telling the fucking truth here.
And what do we say? We said this before it started. It said what's going to happen is once this audit takes place, you're going to hear the Democrats and the establishment start crying the fact that these ballots aren't secure, people's privacy aren't secure, and they're going to use that as an excuse for the DOJ to signal to the FBI to go in there, grab everything, and shut it down. And guess what's happening? And she wrote a letter saying that the security's not in place, the chain of custody, whatnot. And what does the mainstream media do? They go on and lie, these cucks, and support these evil people like Katie Hobbs. She is awful.
And how do progressives justify this? Like same with the like the vaccine thing. Like you say you suspect your government on every single fucking issue, but when it comes down to elections, just because it's now the right talking about it, you're like gonna ignore it completely. You're gonna pretend that this mainstream media who lies about literally everything, lied about weapons of mass destruction, isn't lying about election fraud, and their little fucking cohorts like Katie Hobbs aren't lying about this. Like literally, I will fucking debate Katie Hobbs on everything. I will break fucking everything she says. She's fucking lying. She's a fucking liar. She's a piece of shit.
She runs from journalists.
Liar.
She runs from reporters.
Oh, the journalists weren't allowed in there. No, what happened is they had security. You're bitching about security. They had a whole process of security, like to let people in there, because what was happening is these fucks were taking pictures of people's faces to like get others, because the left loves to dox and attack people.
Yep.
So that's what they were doing. They were doxing and attacking all these people, and like they focusing on that the guy that they put in there, which they shouldn't have put in there, by the way. What was his name?
I forgot.
Yeah.
Ken Hearns, or
yeah,
I forgot his name.
Ernst, or whatever the hell his name is. But he was, he was on January 6th. So what does the media do? Oh, that's all they talk about. Oh, this guy, he's an insurrectionist. Let's throw everything out. AZ Central has been instrumental in pushing their propaganda as well. Like, all of this fucking shit is just disgusting. It's disgusting.
And I'm glad I talked to Senator Sonny Borelli today. They're not going to stop. They ain't getting pushed back. They're going after this thing, and they're going to continue to go until they get what they want, and that's a full forensic audit. And so the hurdles that we have in front of us right now, ladies and gentlemen, they will be jumped over. So they are not stopping over here in Arizona. They're going for it. And if Katie Hobbs is so concerned about journalists that can't get in there, then can she explain this when a journalist asks her a question?
Why are you working so hard to shut the audit down? What are you hiding? Isn't it your job to be nonpartisan? You call this a Republican audit. This is an audit for the people. Secretary Hobbs, do you have any comment?
What? She should wear sneakers,
She
fam.
runs
She's running
away.
like a track star.
She ran away faster from that guy than when AOC ran off when Max Blumenthal tried to ask her a question about Venezuela. Like, this is just 10,000 times worse. She's absolutely awful.
Yeah, she is awful, and she's trying to shut
What are
this
they
thing
hiding,
down.
though?
Yeah.
A
what's going on?
Secretary of State is supposed to be nonpartisan, and it's not like that. We know how it's not. We know that what's his face, Alex Padilla, was not
Senator
ever
Padilla.
now senator. Excuse me, was never nonpartisan. He was fundraising for Hillary Clinton while in his position of Secretary of State. Where are the laws to stop this conflict of interest?
Yeah, guys, go to Fiorella's Twitter. Did you pin it yet or no?
No.
You should pin it. She has the Georgia one pinned up, but
Here, I'll
I
pin
just
this one
listen.
up.
Guys, this is an
I
amazing.
can't because I'm not on mine. But
Don't worry
I will.
about it. This is an amazing meaning thread. Ozzy, if you can put up the first part over there, she's got everything there.
Yeah, I'm not going to go through the whole thing because it's kind of long, but just basically so you guys know how it works, right? So the mainstream media has been lying, of course. I'm going to debunk everything, blah, blah, blah. So in the video, you can see the lazy Susans, right?
Yeah.
In there, and I'll go over the process. So right, we talked about Dominion refused to give the passwords, which is essential.
Everything is in here, guys.
They have not received signatures from the mail-in ballot envelopes. They're alleging this
excuse.
The excuse about the routers.
Yeah.
And on the third one, Oz, if you go to the third, if you scroll down to the number 3 in that thread, I'm just going to go over. So what you're seeing there is the one more
number 3 right there.
What you see here are the audit counters divided into teams based on colored shirts, indicating whether they're part of the pink, blue, green, and yellow team. Somebody said it looks like the game Sorry. You'll see 3 people look at the ballot and mark what it says as it rotates on the circular table, which is a lazy Susan. And you guys, there's a video. You can play the video if you want. As I talk. After that happens, there is a 4th person that makes sure to tally the tallies all match. And then another person puts them into a pile, while there are other observers walking around and monitoring them.
And cameras over every single table.
As you can see, the white thing, that's the camera.
Every single table.
So then the ballots go to a second station where they are photographed and placed inside a scanner to verify the authenticity of the ballot. And so the technology used, just a reminder, we've been talking about this guy, Javon Hutton Pulitzer. It checks the papers, folds, and inks. And that every single U.S. election uses a specific paper, by the way, guys, made from 20% recycled material. So that's vital to point out. Now, he's the guy that was talking about the possible ballots coming in from China. Of course, most people, including people like John Brakey, don't believe that's a reality. But they want to dispel that notion, right? They want this to shut down the actual conspiracy theories that are happening, because a lot of the right falls for the same anti-China propaganda, anti-communist propaganda, the ghost of Hugo Chavez, the ghost of Antifa. All of these things were brought up. That's where I think these Republicans hurt their credibility when it comes to elections. They put in their ideology. Like, don't talk about that shit. Like, focus on the technological aspect, the logical aspect, the chain of custody, the fact that we don't have access to these machines to looking into them. once you put in your ideology that you think it's the commies, that you think it's Antifa, that you think it's China, it literally, the left looks at it and just like, oh, see, it's hard to defend that.
And they're using that,
I
by the
can't.
way.
You make my job 10,000 times harder when we're talking about elections, because then I have to be like, look, they're wrong on that, but you should still have an audit.
Yeah, and the whole thing is whether they come from China, whether they come from Kinko's down the street, all you have to do is authenticate the ballot, and that's all they were trying to do. And literally, I mean, that was one thing he said that was just ridiculous. But what else we got?
Is there anything? Let's see.
I just wanted to. I wanted to put the thread. Guys, go in there yourself. Everything is there. Everything.
Yeah.
The non-disclosure agreement they signed, to the Dems complaining about security.
Yeah, and
it's all in this
transparency.
thread.
It's just funny.
The Lincoln Project and the people from the Brennan Group who's contacting the DOJ.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. It's a great thread. Fiorella left nothing out, so go check that thread out if you get a chance, when you get a chance.
Right. And just another thing to point out, too, just to reinforce that, is like they're trying to distract from the audit by painting it as it's a bunch of insurrectionists doing it. It was one guy that was at the Capitol. He wasn't charged with a crime. It could be like somebody else being at a protest, any protest, not being able to participate. I think they shouldn't have put that guy in there. But at the same time, I think that's a distraction. The guy can't do anything because he's literally on camera.
He's not even
literally
there. He bowed out.
Yeah.
By the way, he said, "I'm gonna take one."
Yeah, he was bringing it down. He was absolutely. That was the right thing to do.
He got out. He says, "All right, I'll get out of this whole situation." He wanted to participate, but and we talked about the Brennan Center and all this stuff that's going on. So there's a lot of great stuff and a lot of stuff to digest. We had an interview with Mark Fincham. We have that up on our YouTube and on our Rokfin. We had an interview with Sonny Borelli today. Mark Fincham's a state representative in the Assembly. He's running for Secretary of State next time out there. A lot of people saying that Katie Hobbs won't run again. Instead, Adrian Fontes will, who he's a cuck as well of the establishment. He was on there bragging that Dominion's a great company, not even just gaslighting people while we have proprietary software in there and it's not open and transparent. And he might be running against Mark Fincham, but it's a great interview with Mark Fincham, the interview with Borelli and stuff like that. It's kind of funny. I don't think the way Borelli mentioned the rumor today, he didn't even actually mention China and stuff like that, but we do talk about that.
North Korea.
South Korea. I think he said it's coming from South Korea, whatever the case may be. And we even talked about whether it comes from down the street, wherever it comes from, wherever. We just want to authenticate the ballot. And they're looking forward for measures. Mark Fincham talked about authenticating ballots as far as making ballots foolproof in the future. So their heads are in the right spot. And the reason why this is important, it's not about Donald Trump or Joe Biden. This is about every single grassroots candidate we're fighting for, because the tactics that we used in this general election have already been tested and tried and worked against Bernie Sanders in 2 different primaries, because the primaries is even more fraud, potential for fraud, because you got one party running it alone and forget about it. When the establishment's running things under their watch, you're not going to get a fair election whatsoever.
100%, Pam. It's just bad all around.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, like, I wouldn't even mention anything regarding like the ballots. Like, I think that's ridiculous. Like, I think they should just flat out stop. Like, we don't need another country to interfere in our elections. We interfere in our own elections. We interfere in other elections. If you saw today, this is like, the United States needs to take fucking accountability and stop thinking that outside forces are conspiring against it, whether it's Russia, whether it's China. Like, it doesn't matter. The left and the right both fucking do it. They completely want to obfuscate and like focus the attention on somebody else doing something when it's us doing it. So
Emble Fate says, why is the MSNBC pretending to care all of a sudden about private companies? They never talk about CrowdStrike, which is another great company that we know about, that lied so that they can go and push this Russiagate narrative. So why is the private company different? What a joke the mainstream media has become.
And not only the mainstream media, Emblem Fate, it's the independent media. Who else besides us is covering this on the left?
Yeah.
Seriously. Like, trying to find them besides Ben, what's his name?
Ben Swan.
Ben Swan.
Yeah.
He's the only guy. And
we're the only ones who've gone down there right now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I haven't seen anybody down there except the cuck minor league to the mainstream media, which are these local channels that are really just muddying the water and trying to undermine. They're not there to observe and look objectively and really find out what's going on. They have one job: undermine.
Make it
undermine
a circus
this election.
show.
Make it a circus show.
Ironically, right
Talk
next
about
to
the bamboo, right next to the carnival that was there.
Carnival. They're like, let's make it a circus
house that we went into that was so dumb. Yeah, right. We went into
I'll throw
clown
it in
house
there.
and stuff. Guys, we have 67 thumbs up on the Rokfin.
Thank you so
51
much.
people watching. Some money in the bank right there that help us out. I want to thank you guys again for sending us out there.
Yeah.
And lovely, especially Mike Ungerleiter, who matched the
That was amazing.
money, but there was money pouring all in. We had some great interviews. We made some great connections. I would bet, fam, we'll probably end up having to go back there again because I don't think they're going to be done with the counting.
No.
And right now, they haven't even received the main things they need to have to pull off a forensic audit. They need those passwords so they can go in there, look at all the administrative duties, all the administrative logs, see what's going on. They need those routers to see if the internet was talking with the tabulation machines. And let me tell you something. This is something that's somewhat new to a lot of representatives out there who've been duped, not realizing that these tabulation machines, and we showed this with Johnny in New Hampshire, when they have SIM cards in the machine, when the internet is talking to the tabulation machines. They proved it in Georgia, they proved it in Michigan, they proved it in Arizona, and now they're trying to cover that up. The Maricopa County Board of Supervisors is still insisting that the internet was not working and connected to the tabulation machines on election nights. Well, give us the proof. Show us the proofs. Give us those logs, whatnot. And it's a shame because it's really, really big. And we're going to find out more information. There's so much stuff to unpack. Going there was great. We got to go back again because by the time they get all this information, they're going to take a pause in the Memorial Coliseum for graduation. So they have to take a week off. So hopefully what they think they're going to do is going to put everything in the back room there, maybe put cameras on it so it's 24/7 it's looked at, let the graduations go through, bring everything out, continue to do the audit because they want to do it right. They don't want to just rush through this stuff. They want to do it right. Get all that information, find out what's going on, and repair our elections for the future. In New Hampshire, fam, we have news right now that's going on. Their recount triggered an audit. The selectmen, I believe they call them, there's 4 of them, chose an audit team. The people were not happy. They had private funding, and now they've raised over $50,000 plus, and they want to bring Javon Hutton Pulitzer over there with a different IT guy because the IT guy they picked is handsome Hari Hertzi, who's in that movie Kill Chain, and he's just a Russiagator. He blames all the election problems on Russia. He cannot be the one in control over there. He's got Russianitis. We need somebody else over there. So in New Hampshire, look for stuff to happen. Stuff still going on in Georgia, still stuff going on in Michigan. Wisconsin's on the bridge. So we might get more information. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And if the DOJ goes in there and confiscates everything, craziness will break out.
That just tells you everything
Craziness
you need
will
to
break
know.
out, though, so they better watch it.
What are they hiding?
Yeah.
That just tells you everything, guys.
It tells us everything. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Oz. Oz, you got any final comments on the show today? Anything you want to talk about? Which topic really caught you by surprise today?
None of them. You guys are nailing it. We think so much alike. It's uncanny. I've got to say the election integrity is forever in my heart because without secure elections, we are going to let this banana republic go on forever.
Yeah.
You heard it right
100%.
from the Oz's mouth.
The Oz's mouth.
Not the horse's mouth, the Oz's
The
mouth.
wizard of Oz.
The wizard. So, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you go over to Rokfin, Rokfin. Remember, they just had their Android app released today, so get on
Download
it,
it.
check it out, download it.
Give us a review of what's wrong with it, what's
Yeah.
good about it, so we can report back to the Rokfin creators.
Yes, I have a phone call scheduled with them coming up whenever they call me back. I don't know if it's scheduled, but hopefully they'll call me back. So thank you so much to all our Patreons out there. You guys are amazing. Thanks for everybody who donated for the fund to get us out there. We're going to continue doing this. We're going to keep our eyes to the ground. So for Pasta Jardula,
Fiorella,
the Wizard of Oz on those 1s and 2s.
Convo out.
We'll see y'all Wednesday.
It's a long ass show.